It's time for Declare Your Independence with Ernest Hancock.
Believe me when I say we have a difficult time ahead of us. But if we are to be prepared for it, we must first shed our fear of it. I stand here without fear because I remember that I am here not because of the path that lies before me, but because of the path that lies behind me. I remember that for 100 years we have fought these machines. And after a century of war, I remember that which matters most. We are still here! Tonight, let us make them remember we are not afraid!
Me, Ernest Hancock, from the Sonoran Desert with Dr. Phranq Tamburri. Oh, on the Trump report. Yeah, Trump report. You know, we got to get Trump up. You know, what's going on right now is RFK Jr. is before, I don't know, the House, the Senate, or something. Listened for about 5 minutes. Hell, I couldn't even go 5 minutes. It's just, well, you said, and weed eating Big Pharma saves lives, and you're saying it's killing, you're bad, and we want you gone, and we got a gazillion, petition signed of Health and Human Services employees that don't like you. They said so right here, since for decades they've been getting paid by they, them, those to not like you because they don't like you. And I'm just, really, whatever.
So, Ernie, I got to interject. So welcome, audience, to another suffrage of the Trump report. Since he's talking about Big Pharma, he went there immediately. Here's a story. I don't know if you've heard this. I just heard it this morning. Hope you guys are sitting down for this. The CEO of Pfizer, have you heard about him? Just yesterday. CEO of Pfizer, Albert Bourla, right? He just came out and he said, you know what? Trump is so awesome. We think he should be nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize.
Of course.
For not for solving the world problems in Gaza, which is an atrocity and everything. Oh no. It's for Operation Warp Speed. That's because Trump is definitely trying. It's funny. I said I know he wants a Nobel Peace Prize. It's like it's been on his brain before he was reelected. And he's thinking, and he's thinking he'll get it through other ways with international, all he's doing is blowing up the international countries and our agreements, and we'll get into that later about India and China and Russia and that whole little powwow. We'll definitely get to that today. Oh, my God. But because he's probably going to lose that access to a peace prize, now you've got the CEO of Pfizer saying, well, you know what? We'll have another angle to get it. Operation Warp Speed. You saved the world with your pseudo vaccines. But of course, the real reason is because Pfizer knows that they're about to be, exposed and deep-sixed and with lawsuits and whatever else if this thing comes out of what they're trying to get rid of RFK Jr. And now they're basically taking a knee and sucking up to Trump in many ways of a Nobel Peace Prize. I mean, it's just disgusting the fact that he even would think he can get away with that, but he might, because he knows Donald Trump's vain approach to politics, and you just angle it that way, and
You're
might
so
actually
strong.
Win. Oh,
well, one thing Trump did is he did do a Truth Social post or whatever, how he communicates from the Presidente office of, is that, well, RFK Jr. is going to come out and say some stuff. I need them to produce the research on the whatever, and we're going to find out if Operation Warp Speed was as great and wonderful as I thought it was and I'm so proud of. So he gave himself an out. He's like, I thought it was. I was just trying to do my job. They lied to me. We're going to find out. So he's got himself open to where he's willing to take the hit on Operation Warp Speed if the overwhelming opinion of the people is for RFK Jr.'s got the receipts, some bitch. and you be bad. Freedom, good government, bad, 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 bad. So here he's left himself open to be able to change his mind to do something. So strategically, that was a good idea on his part, and we'll see what I can't imagine RFK Jr. coming out with anything that he couldn't back up. That doesn't mean they're not going to throw mud on any and everything. You said you changed, you tricked us into getting you confirmed, and now you're doing it wrong. So I'm it's one of those. This happens at 3 weeks. 3 weeks. You gotta wait 3 weeks, and then it'll come out. That was one thing. Corbin and I did a show last night, and I remember it came up that there is now a correlation between SSRI. I mean, it's all over the place. Big, talk shows, podcasts, so on, have an expert of, and these school shootings are the result of them getting off SRIs and ADHD medication, and kind of all of a sudden, I feel like I've been on this for years and I'm getting off. I'm 17 and I went, buy whatever alphabet soup people and stuff, and I'm unhappy and I'm going to go lay waste to somebody. Well, this happened in the late 90s. It was called Columbine. Then you had Virginia Tech. Then you had. Mm-hmm. Well, that was when Vince Supranowicz, Las Vegas Review-Journal editor in biggest newspaper in Nevada, Las Vegas. He was a good friend. He retired after, all newspapers got retired. And he used to have a column nationwide called The Libertarian. And they didn't like that none too much. And eventually they kind of got him desyndicated. You got canceled, deplatformed before broadband of the internet. But what he did is, big stories like this. Wrote the book Send in the Waco Killers and the Ballad of Carl Draga, which was somebody just had enough and went postal in New Hampshire, and these kind of things. Well, what happened was, that's when I got 3 weeks. He goes, you wait 3 weeks after all the BS dies down, then you're going to find out what the real story is, what people start bringing out in support of whatever position they had, the facts, the studies, the this, that. That's what, they're detonating the atomics, boom, that happens today. Then after all, it settles down and everything, and anybody that gives a crap still paying attention, 3 weeks, you're going to start to see what's really going on and who positioned themselves to be in charge of whatever. Well, then, when Columbine happened, after he started making the connection. All these kids are on these drugs. And when they go off of them, that's when they have to, you got to be in suicide counseling, sitting in the daily check-in of whatever as you go off of these things. And it also, by just stopping those SSRIs, it causes permanent brain damage. Mm-hmm. And this is stuff that he was talking about, God, what is it, 25 years ago? Libertarian out there going, look, I can tell you what's going on. And he does. And he does again. Here's another example. I went back and I pulled up the story, and we had it it's still on the front page of Freedom's Phoenix today. You'll see there's 3 stories. One, the Diary of a CEO guy, the black guy from London that does a really good show. Anyway, we have regular stuff up for him. He had a guy going on SSRIs, they're the crap. Then you had, I think it was Tucker had one, there it is. Then you have, article, there it is. And then I was talking to James, he goes, yeah, I did it back, 10 years ago. He has a video up, there it is. And it goes all the way back to Vince Supranowicz in the late 90s when Columbine mass school shooting happened. It was in Colorado. And then you get Michael Moore making, we need to take the guns away videos and all this other stuff. When the government wants to take the guns away, it's when they're going to do something that you're going to need your guns for. I'm just saying, okay? So this is a mantra, and it's coming up against the facts that the reason these things are happening is because those probably, likely, know that it is a side effect of them creating a bunch of this stuff Was it on purpose? Did they know they're going to be homicidal little mass shooting people? You know, is it? And what happened? You know, okay, just an aside. Let me do this real quick. I'll turn it back. There was it was the Texas Austin clock tower shooting back in the 60s or early 70s. A guy, he climbs the clock tower. He came out of the military. He was a sharpshooter, or at least, you know, he could shoot a rifle. He gets up on top with a bunch of ammunition, and he just starts plinking off people. Now, it was a big thing. Boom. Anybody on the street? Boom. Dead, 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 dead. They find out later that he had written stuff down. Man, my mind's going crazy. I'm having all these thoughts. I can't, I have an overwhelming compulsion to do this. There's something wrong with me. Nobody will help me. I can't, whatever. Bang, 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 bang. Come to find out, he had a tumor in his brain. And it was something changed. Could it be that, they, them, those go, oh, what part of the brain did that trip? Can we do that, with a chemical? Can we turn people into mass shoot, go and take out whatever? Hey, Pharma, what's up? You got something for us? Absolutely. Here we go. Would they do that? No. That'd be wrong. So can they? So that's the only question I got to ask myself. Can they do something like that? If they can, they just, foment this atmosphere. You're saving the planet by taking this stuff out. All these little white Christian little girls need to be mowed down because of what. And there's something, a trigger that you can turn people when you got 100 million people that you're giving all this crap to. Somebody's going to go postal. And the reason we call it going postal is that in the 90s, there was a regular thing, these Vietnam vets or somebody, whatever, they had issues. You always get a job at the post office, if you're damaging the brain vet of whatever the hell. And it had a bunch of these postal workers were just, pissed off and came in and start laying waste. Okay, what drugs were they on? When they come back from Vietnam, they come back from Iraq, they come back from whatever, and this was going postal became a thing. So what do you call it when you got SSRI mass shootings at the schools? Going something. Going crazy. So this isn't on purpose. I don't know. But do they know? You mix this, it's like doing an experiment. I remember I was a sophomore in high school. They put a beaker out there. They filled it about 3/4 of the way with sugar. And I think it was sulfuric acid. They just poured sulfuric acid in it, stirred it with a paint stick kind of thing, and then stepped back. And then within like 10 seconds, it went whoom, and did like a 4-foot high, perfect cylinder column of carbon. Whatever the reaction was, and it did. That was the coolest crap ever. And it made me think, what if by mixing 2 different things, 3 different things, 4 different things, you get every single freaking time this result. You get thermite, in the demolition thing, and you melt steel. You get this, you get that, if well, with AI, with experimentation, with DARPA, with they, them, those, they know you mix these chemicals, you put human beings in it, you add a little testosterone and puberty, shit happens. And it's the stuff that they need to be able to alter our perceptions of what is real and not, what caused something, what different. It's the gun. Got to get rid of the guns. But I think people, and enough people that just freaking know better, they want to take the guns. It's because they're going to do something that you're going to wish you had a gun for. That's what's going on.
Right, so
it's getting closer.
I want to get back before you get off the medical. You made some good points there about medicine, and just to chime in, I do play a doctor during the day, so it's gonna. I can't believe I'm doing this, but I'm actually defending the MDs and the drug companies to a certain degree. So sometimes a certain discussion pushes me, God forbid, into a certain point. But first off, about serotonin with the SSRIs, one of the main problems there is it's called serotonin syndrome, And that's when people either take too many, or they take two drugs, or sometimes even illicit drugs or something like cocaine that compounds and combines with a regular SSRI. Sometimes they're on more than one SSRI. They're taking one from their friend or their girlfriend or whatever, or they just take higher dose, or there's very sensitive. There's a lot that gets into this. But about 15% of people start to have these serotonin syndrome, which is just an excess. And within a day, you start to have, high blood pressure and blurred vision, and all sorts of things can affect you. So, and it definitely affects the mind. But anyway, and then on top of that, you have the opposite problem when you try to get off of these medications. You can't just stop cold turkey. Then you get basically serotonin withdrawal problems. So anyway, that serotonin is a whole different deal. That gets into the mind, which is very complicated, the most complicated area of medicine, to the point where it's almost not even a medicine. It's more of a suggestion. Surgery is like being a mechanic. You just go in there and you change things. That's why a lot of doctors who do not like talking with patients, which unfortunately is many more of them by now. The word physician in Latin means teacher. That's actually what it means. I was surprised when I learned that in medical school. Not much teaching goes on anymore with your doctors. They barely talk with you. And the real money is not talking with you and wasting their time talking with a damn patient, but getting into the OR, scrubbing in, and cha-ching, So, and look, I'm not trying to demonize all the surgeons. They're my buddies as well, and there's a need for it. But anyway, as far as with the medications. And remember, guys, I'm a naturopathic physician. My training is in natural remedies and solutions rather than jumping to prescription drugs. With that said, I have worked in that field for years. I even worked at Merck Pharmaceuticals back in the day. You saw the good, the bad, the ugly, but they're not. I don't look at them as all the antichrists as people like to demonize. It's an industry, and it's a very interesting industry that we're seeing in the political world today. But I just want to point out one of the problems that patients don't see when we're beating up on doctors and the drug companies. Again, I cannot believe, I'm not trying to defend the drug companies like they're all the newly fallen snow here. But, when you have to ask yourself, though, from a doctor's point of view, and I've been there, especially when I worked with the MDs, what do you do? A patient comes in and, they need help. And what if a simple solution is not helping, right? And, what do you do, especially when something's not working? So you start looking for other medications. Now, why? What do I mean by what do you do? Well, let's think about how this has changed since the old days. In the old days, if you were sick, first off, you didn't have, diseases from around the world. I mean, I'm talking about a while ago, right? And then also, if you got sick, your wife was at home, right? Only the man was working, typically. And if he was sick, the family all rallied around to help him. If he needed more help, the neighbors came. And if you're out of commission for a while and you couldn't get back to work, then the churches came, the community came, they helped you. They would help feed you and bring money, and the community helped people through these illnesses. And also you did not have these strict five day work weeks and overtime, mandatory overtime, and this and that and that. You didn't have all. This is a different world. And so people could afford to be sick a lot easier than they can today. So if you look today, we have a 5-day work week. I just made a few notes when you were talking. We have 2 breadwinners. So, you got 2 people both having to have a job. So you don't have your wife to help you out. Or if your wife's there, then someone else's wife can come from the neighbor's wife can help your wife and when you have to go off to work, right? And then God help you if you're a single parent or a single person by yourself, right? Then, of course, there's more financial pressure as we get to the collapse of the dollar and the taxes of 50% or whatever, and all the fees and blah blah. So you can't even afford to take a day off anymore. People have no savings, which is a whole nother topic that this audience knows very well. So you can't even count on the savings. People are not going to churches or community. Now they're starting to go back now because the economy in the world's falling apart, and that's when people go back to the pews. When people are living large and hanging and banging in the 80s and printing money up and timeshares and the rest of that, who the hell has time for God? I'm busy partying. So that community breaks down. Not to mention the government and the new system likes to keep you from community. They create these walls around you where you're being told by mainstream media how to think. And assuming what your neighbors think. And so they break down that trust with community, which is, of course, is what the whole Trump movement and MAGA and a lot of this has been about, is breaking that down. And, you know, not to get off topic, but that's where we've been for decades and decades. Also, natural treatments, botanical medicines, they take a while. They take a while. You know, I mean, you've got to take them, you know, weeks, months. Many of them are adaptogens, things that kind of create a homeostasis in your body. But botanicals typically do not just, you take an herb and then immediately you just watch the clock and an hour or two later your blood pressure drops. Actually, there is one that does that called Rauwolfia, but we won't go there. You know, hopefully no one's listening to the show. But that's an herb that's regulated amongst naturopaths ourselves. But most botanicals do not do that, because if you took an herb and you received an immediate effect that was so strong that you felt it, and I'm not saying all of them, you know, there's many that you can feel quickly, but the more you feel something quickly and the more effect you want, typically there's more side effects, because it means that the drug is forcing your body in a direction it doesn't want to go. Whereas natural treatments tend to guide. They kind of caress and guide your body in different ways. And that's the beauty and the art of medicine that used to be all medicine. Now we call it natural medicine. It's kind of like how there used to be economics. Economics, if you made $1, you didn't spend 2, right? It was called economics. Now we have to have a different name, Austrian economics, you know, to break it in Keynesianism. But anyway, but Americans just don't have the patience, and that's the other part. Americans want instant results. It's just kind of the American way: fast food, fast this, fast medicine. And it's interesting how there's a phenomena where if a patient comes to the doctor's office, you know, and you don't give them a drug, you know, then I mean, if you just say, hey, you know, there's nothing that needs to be done here, even though you feel like there's not a problem, you know, the patient has waited sometimes, you know, weeks or months to see you, right? Then there's a huge, you know, there's a long wait in the waiting room to finally see the doctor. Then you get 10 minutes with the doctor, right? And then the doctor, if you think about it, in 10 minutes, they'd have a hard time really breaking down your case. Also in 10 minutes, if the change, if making you healthier without a drug is lifestyle change, well, now you have to have a conversation. You have to discuss about simple carbohydrates, or maybe a keto diet, or describe different things. You have to, you know, to talk about, you have to get into their lifestyle. And sometimes, you know, understanding what blood sugar is and insulin. And I mean, that's why physician is teacher. You cannot do that in 10 minutes. Again, I mean, as a naturopath, that's why we only take cash, because that way we can spend the time with you. But the system is they have no time. So you can't even get to these deeper issues. So at the end of the day, after you're waiting to see a doctor, you're waiting in the lobby, you get this, you're paying for all this money for insurance that doesn't do anything for you. Then you still get a $200 copay, and you have all of this, plus your day off from work that you need to make up. When by the time you're sitting there in 10 minutes, and you say, you know, I'm pointing to where it hurts, do something, there comes the drug. And the drug is there to be the panacea on all sides. And if you don't give them something, even a placebo, then the patient feels like they wasted their money, they wasted their time. There's this expectation. After all of that, it's like, I want my prize. You know, I don't know, if you go to see Santa Claus or something, you know, you want the candy cane at the end, at least something to justify what you're doing. So it goes both ways. I just wanted to stand up for the doctor's perspective and the MDs. As much as many of them are not aware of the trap that they're in themselves, and how they're the facilitators of drugs that are causing harm. And I mean, I could go all day. I'm not obtuse.
Yes, you can.
That I'm a naturopath for a reason, because I see all that. But at the same time, it's easy to bash the doctors, but it goes both ways too. The patients often have these expectations, and the society has created a new world where people cannot afford to be sick, which is part of the whole sick society, the sick economy, and everything we talk about Freedom's Phoenix. So it's all intertwined. So the drug companies do play a role to help doctors just, you know, perhaps if healing patients in some ways. Often, though, I will agree, you're kicking the can down like the economy, but you're kicking down the can often with many of these diseases. But that's what our society's turned into in all factors. Anyway.
And the bottom line of all that was what?
was that the doctors that and the drug so there is a need for the drugs. They have their place. It's when they're overused or abused, or you're not spending the time to find other options before you turn to the drugs. That's the issue. But many patients, I'll just say, and I'll keep this quick, is that when many patients think they want to demonize, oh, doctors just give me drugs, but at the same time, the drugs do work more times than they don't. I mean, if you have surgery, for instance, I mean, there's plenty of medications you're getting, whether you know it or not. Before the surgery, when to put you out, to regulate your blood pressure while you're out, to monitor. I mean, there's so many medications that people take and that you do get benefit from that people don't realize. It's not that every drug is a problem. Just like with botanical medicines, it's not like they all work, and not as if they don't have side effects either.
All right, let me go ahead and sum it up. There are incentives and there are disincentives, and the incentives on the full spectrum of expectations from the patient, the television commercials that are up, all the people pouncing through fields and sunshine and, puffy white clouds of this too can be you and happy if you take this here drug, ask your doctor, which, nobody ever sold any drugs because of those commercials. That's just bribing the networks to not cover the truth. This is, I can't even get away from it on home building videos on YouTube. Now, let me see how to mix this panel with a tile mortar and fiberglass mesh to be able to create the kind of that. And ask your doctor at Fry's, you can get your shot and everything's good, and we're all pouncing around and happy that and it's free. I mean, I'm like, wow, the incentives and the disincentives are misaligned with what is best for human health. That is a given.
Well, what I'm saying is that these doctors and the drug companies mostly are not sitting around like Snidely Whiplash, twirling their mustaches, trying
They're
to
just
screw
reacting
over
to the
people.
incentives.
It's incentives, but it's driven also by a marketplace where people, at least want some of this or think they need.
You want to see incentives? Look at the marketplace. All kinds of incentives.
Putting it in their. Well, look, they put commercials on, and people sit there. Oh, I need that. I want that Viagra. I saw it on television. It goes both ways. So I'm just saying, everyone's playing their part in this. Are there the Machiavellian people at the top that are sitting there with don't mind people die so they can make a profit? Absolutely, but it's like blaming everything on certain politicians. That at large, most people, especially doctors, are doing their best of what they believe is right. Remember, I party with these guys. Like when it comes to prostate cancer, many of them are part of a problem that they don't even see. Like it's like being in law enforcement sometimes. You got a guy who becomes a cop. He just wants to be a Dudley Do-Right. And yeah, I know there's a lot of, I'm from Philly, guys. I know about Philly cops too. So like I understand there's the bad cops out there. But I mean, let's just the stereotypical guy gets in law enforcement, wants to give back to his community and do well. But a lot of times they don't even understand the system that they're in, of how they're being used or manipulated, or how they don't see it themselves. And that's where a lot of the doctors are, and the nurses. We're in a whole nother conversation, and the drug companies. It's just everyone's playing their part in this stage play. There are bad actors, pun intended, definitely. But I just want to point out, it's not like they're all trying to screw people over. A lot of it's naivete and ignorance. And these doctors, a lot of times the doctors have a separate problem, and that is they've been told by their parents and their teachers and society at large how damn smart they are. Oh, my son's going to be a doctor or a lawyer. And then they're usually top in their class, and then they get the awards, and everyone. And so they're constantly being patted on the back about how smart they are. Then they become doctors, and but they've never had a lemonade stand. They've never signed a payroll check. They have no idea how the real world works. They've never taken time off. I got so much crap, audience, when I went off to Japan. Many of you know I went to college in Japan. Then I lived at a Buddhist monastery for a while. And I was pre-med the whole time. I was the only person at the college in Japan that had a science background, let alone medicine. I think I was the first pre-med ever to do the study abroad program. And they were surprised. Everyone else were finance and this and that. And my doctor friends all thought I was crazy. And, they had a point. Because once you're on track to become a doctor, it's like, it's one thing leads to the next, You're on a train. And it ends in 15 years when you have your residency, then your internship, and then you inherit essentially the older senior doctor's practice as he's retiring and all the insurance codes, and you just get sucked right into the whole system. Well, I have too much of a libertarian, a troublemaker gene like Ernie and most of you listening do. By the way, we've been watching Firefly. We got to talk about that later. But anyway, but all of that is like I have too much of that gene, and I'm like, look, before I get sucked into the system, I want to see the world differently before I do this. And that's why I spent years traveling and other things. But I was told by all my, future doctor friends, Phranq, you really screwed up your chances. And I did, to be honest. I had a bunch of years in turmoil trying to figure out what I was going to do because I did get off the train. I got off it to experience other things. But you're not supposed to. They don't want you to. So what you have are doctors who have been told by how smart they are their whole life, and then they've never done a payroll check, never seen the world, never had time to read, The Creature from Jekyll Island. They haven't explored or experienced anything else. It's almost like Zuckerberg and a lot of these tech giants. They became rich so quick, they never had time themselves to experience the world before they started to control it. And that's what these doctors do. And so they get, all of a sudden, they're doctors, and they think they are smart. But let's just say, for a colloquial way of putting it, they're book smart, not street smart. And then they certainly don't understand the industry that now they're in. So when the government starts to take over their industry, they don't even recognize it because they have not been political. They've all been medical.
What influences them. They understand the incentive. They understand the parties. They understand the trips. They understand the bonuses. I get a boat this year if I do that. If I do that, I get deplatformed and my medical license taken away and all this other stuff.
It's turned into that.
Of course it's going to turn into that. It always turns into that.
Well, only when government gets involved with it.
Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah, well, exactly. Exactly, you win a prize, Phranq. No, I get that. What I mean is that they don't. Look. I'll prove my point. Yeah,
prove it.
We're not hanging out. Ernie and I were
talk about Firefly.
I was starting. I know, man. That show has you written on there. But right before I met Ernie, right before Ernie and I started hanging out, audience, it was right around Obamacare getting debated and such.
Which is how we knew each other. You were doing presentations at legislative district meetings, and here's a Ron Paul, conservative, libertarian type doctor willing to tell you you don't want Obama Hillary care or whatever, and this is why. And I went, ooh, what he said.
Yeah, exactly. How many Phranqs do you know? God help you. Not many, right?
Not many.
Exactly, not many. And in my own profession, let's just say I was a bit unique. I was very well known in my school. I mean, I was respected. It was nice that my whole class chose me to give the graduation address, which was a very unique one.
And you were a professor there.
Right, exactly. So they all kind of know. Okay, that's Phranq, And in fact, in all credit to the school, I was senior professor 23 years, and they all kind of know I'm just a little different. But I taught very well, and I had the highest ratings. But they eventually started to adopt all this DEI crap, and they made every doctor, every professor each year have to go through some kind of DEI awareness class or whatever it was. I didn't even know about it. I had other teachers, other professors that were like, the younger and all, and they were all talking about how they have to do this DEI thing every year. And I didn't even know what they were talking about. It turns out the school just decided, it's Phranq, let's just not bother. And so I shouldn't be saying this on the air, right? I guess I was clept out of having to do that because they kind of knew it's Phranq, right? So I guess I'll give them some credit for not pushing it on me. But they kind of knew they were going to lose talent if they did. So, it is what it is.
Yeah, the politicals don't call me anymore.
But these doctors, I was friends with these guys, with it. But I was the one of only about 10%, I would say, to be fair, 10 to 15% of the doctors that I was, that palling around that time frame, 2008 and such, were screaming against Obamacare. I would say 60% or 70% were all in favor of Obamacare. They wanted our profession, an outside private, cash-based system that was our advantage, is that we were not just alternative medicine of drugs, we were an alternative medical system that was completely outside the system. And yet 75%, I would say 60 to 70% were all in favor. Now, there was probably a good 15, 20% somewhere in between that were, they were trying to figure it out or they didn't care or whatever. But what I found fascinating were the 15% or 20% that were against it. We were all the ones that became naturopaths later in life. We were the ones that already worked in the system. There were nurses that became naturopaths, or people who were, I don't know, they were in the healthcare pharmacy tech that became a naturopath. I was one of the only that had no medical background before, like worked in the industry, except, well, I guess that's not true. I did the organ transplant surgeries. It's just that, I was a libertarian, and so I already kind of knew. I already had a whole nother mindset. But we were the older crowd who was against it. And we fought, and it was just an ongoing battle. And so this gives you a sense that the doctors themselves don't even understand enough about economics or about how these things play out. For instance, one last point, hopefully this is a bit interesting. There was a big battle in our school about becoming accredited, about being accredited. And they were like, it was this whole thing where, we have to have site inspections from the government, and every time the accreditation committee was coming, we all had to make sure we had extra nice clothes on, and the faculty are all wearing suits and ties, and it was, because the government's coming, we've got to be looking good, we want accreditation. And I was the only guy in the back and two other people who were conservatives. I was the only libertarian. We had two conservatives, both that were military nurses. And the military nurses knew what the hell was going on. But here I am, I'm like, hello, why are we getting accredited? I'm against accreditation. And the entire class would turn and look at me like I'm from Mars. I said, why do you need to be accredited? I said, do you understand? And they'll say, well, because if we're accredited, then we'll be qualified for government money, and more students now can come to our school. And I said, let me explain this to you guys. The minute you're accredited, not only are they going to control everything about this school, but when suddenly everyone has access
and disincentives,
the price is going to double. I said this school is going to become unaffordable for anyone without the government monies, right? And you have to take even more loans to do the same program. And people it was astounding. They're such smart doctors. They're so smart. Mommy and daddy see you pat them on the back, but they don't understand just basic economics. And so let's just say I've been told by many doctor friends through the years, they still remember that argument we had in this big, it was a big auditorium type of debate of our profession had in the school. And I had a few things to say during that meeting, and they still remembered it. The tuition was about $110,000 back then for naturopathic medical school. And now it's about $400,000. I think it's $350,000 to $400,000 for the same degree, and they have fewer opportunities because they're so, the government stuff, regulation. I mean, they're having a hard time. And unfortunately, not to get too much on this whole profession, I just have to get back to Trump report, but a lot of the naturopaths that were all natural medicine, they can't compete now with the internet. I mean, before you had to see a naturopath to find out what herbs to take. Now people just, they search Google for it, and then they buy the herbs, not from the doctor who actually has higher quality than probably most of you can find. But people just think, well, echinacea is echinacea. I'm just going to get it from Costco, or I'm going to buy from Amazon, Jeff Bezos. And so, the naturopaths can't make any money doing naturopathic medicine, and they can't even make profits from selling the botanical supplements because you guys are all buying them from Jeff Bezos. And so, they can't pay off a $350,000 degree. So guess what they're doing? They're all now going into aesthetic medicine. They're going into Botox or, all kinds of injections, anything that they can do that you can't do from Amazon, or at least AI can't do yet.
I got a syringe. Do you have a syringe?
No, exactly. And I remember my friend, I won't mention her name, but she was in my class, and really neat lady. She was the first naturopath to go into Botox. She was the trailblazer back in the day and fought the government because they said you couldn't use Botox. It was a drug. But Botox is basically a poison that comes from a bacteria, which technically is natural. And so we went through this whole thing trying to get it approved and having our board allow Botox. which, at the time, she was a trailblazer, and being the libertarian I am, I'm like, hey, good for you. That was great. There's more freedom for us. But now that it's gone through between Botox, the whole industry, my industry is turned into this. You don't find classic naturopaths anymore. They're as rare as the dodo. My wife is one of the last generation of the classic naturopaths, which your family, I know, some people see her, and she's like a dying breed of that classic naturopath. All the young whippersnappers, they're buying all these machines and injections and anything to pay the bills. Plus, we're in Snobsdale, Scottsdale, when everyone is sitting there trying to look like Cindy McCain kind of look. But that's so there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on with the industry. But even natural medicine is a victim of its own super smart people that are so smart, but yet they're so stupid because they don't understand the rest of the world, because the system grabs them from high school to college and medical school and residency and internship, and they've never had a chance to breathe, see the world, understand how things work. And that, I think, is the Achilles heel. And the very last point is that I remember when Obamacare... Last pinky swear. But when Obamacare was going through, this was not just about naturopaths. This is MDs at large. And I might get the exact number wrong, but I'm ballpark here. It was like 80 to 90% of MDs were either in favor of Obamacare at the time when it was being debated to go through, or they just thought it would not be any effect to them. All they cared about was that they're getting the same money, the same income as before. What was fascinating was the people who were debating on behalf or against Obamacare were actually nurses. Some of the nurses were against it. Some of the pharmacy companies were against it, home health companies. A lot of them were all debating it. AARP, the retirement agency was, of course, they were all in for it. Other people were against it. But what you never heard, and this was fascinating to me at the time, if you go back and you watch the old videos of people debating on CNN or Fox or whatever, PBS, you never heard from the doctors. You didn't hear from a doctors union or a doctors group saying that they're against it or even for it. It's almost like they had no voice. Everyone else had a voice. You had the attorneys talking about it, the drug companies talking about it, the nurses even. Everyone had a voice, but you never heard from the doctors. And I found that perplexing and profoundly interesting. And most of them just wanted their money, and they just said, hey, I'm too busy making money. I'm too busy to get involved with all this political stuff. Right? So 80 to 90% were in favor of it or nonplussed about it. And there was like 10% quirky troublemakers like me and, against it. Well, then after Obamacare went through, it was only about 5 years after, and they did another poll, and the majority of doctors now said, I think it was whatever it was, like 75% or so, said that the Obamacare was either an extremely bad idea and it backfired, or it's just they don't see how it's made any improvements for patients. So they kind of learned the hard way after, of all people, should have stood up for this and been aware to stop it.
Yep.
It should have been the doctors. And the doctors are so smart, but they're such dumbasses, they allowed it to happen on their watch. So that's all I'm saying, is that the doctors, they're in their own place. Ignorance, they're naive, they're smart on one level, but they're not, so they don't even understand the game that they're in. So when the drugs are part of the milieu of treatment of patients who need they want a treatment, stat, not all of them are diehard natural people. That's the industry. That's what the customer wants. Plus it's on television. They have to fill a need, and that's all they know to do. So it's not on purpose. It's just, they're just a cog in the wheel.
Cog in the wheel. And one of the things, and this is why, God help me, it's not the only reason, but I mean, it's why Phranq and I, are a team of friends, and I got to, get to know Phranq because I could see that he was passionate and understood the economics of it, the incentive structure, what was going to happen, human nature of people thinking they want to be under the governor's medical board of we're just like them and take insurance. And they go, whoa, this is why did this branch of medicine. This is why you're here. This is, preventative in medicine and, health care, not sick care. All this kind of verbiage came out of Phranq warning people at the legislative precinct committeemen, Republican Party, influence, politics, voting, general public opinion, awareness level. That was why I was impressed with the credibility of Phranq, because it wasn't in his own personal financial interest. He cared at a different level. He understood where this was going. He explained it to them, and everything he said that was going to happen, happened. While he and I both belong to a supper club that, is, a bunch of they, them, those, and the doctors there, hi, Doc Cato, fellow people, super doctor, judges, lawyer, entrepreneur, finance, whatever guys, and they're, but we benefit from, and we get our kind of, and you're doing it wrong. Well, who turned out right? We go on the Love Bus Liberty Tour, and I told them, I said, look, you guys, we're going to be coming back. One of the guys, Jerry, is a actuary, insurance, whatever, they do the numbers to determine the risk for what your premiums are kind of guy. And I go, when I come back, which is like last year or two, when I come back, we're going to have Jerry up there talking about the numbers and how they're not going to cover people that took this stuff. It didn't take but freaking a year or two before they go, hey, that was experimental and nobody, held you down and gave you the shot. So it was experimental, and your death benefit on your life insurance is not paid, and life sucks and to be you. And I'm going, man, but one of two things happen. They double down, or they go, oh, yeah, I was always against the mandatory. I'm like, you guys are, and at the core of it is always what is rewarded and what is punished. If your job depends on you taking a certain position, if your new boat, if your, tax bracket, gets moved up, and it's based on whatever the hell, and you sold out and you tout the line of whatever, and a big incentive for you to do that. And no matter how, freedom-oriented you say you are, and for choice and whatever, that when it's an emergency is when it matters most. Free speech don't mean crap until you got the Nazis wanting to protest in the park of whatever the hell. I mean, it's to protect the rights of individuals in the extreme cases. It doesn't need protection otherwise. People, I'd rather, when it comes down to, hey, dissent, difference, not with the mainstream. Don't care what the television says. The news is captured by they, them, those anyway. We have blah, 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 blah. That's when it matters. That's when Phranq came out. That's when Phranq was, sharing what he knew from his perspective. Let me tell you, economically, these incentives are going to, it's just like when we were running a presidential candidate against Harry Brown for the Libertarian nomination in 96. That whole thing was to prevent, for 4 more years, and then they eventually start doing it, to prevent the Libertarian Party from accepting presidential funds, because it came with so many restrictions. Yeah, but we get this money, and we can have 5, 10 jobs for politicos to actually make, and then we lobby for more money, and we get more entwined and more subservient to the more. And I'm like, this is the death knell of the Libertarian Party. As soon as you start taking presidential matching funds, it is going to be under the conditions of you can't be Libertarian anymore. I'm just saying.
Hey, a quick echo about what the strings attached, how it could be the death nail. I forgot the cherry on top of that Sunday speech I gave, which is, guess what also came with the restrictions of getting government money for accreditation for our naturopathic medical school.
Take the freaking shot.
Exactly. In 2021, when that shot came out, in order for these students to collect that government money that you have to get because it's too expensive now to pay for it on your own, you had to submit to the experimental drug from a bioweapon tested for 1 week in a naturopathic medical school. And after you get your experimental drug, then we can get back to school talking about how baby aspirin might give a couple side effects once on a blue moon, and let's take a bunch of echinacea. Your head explodes, but that's the consequence, which has tarnished our own profession in many ways from that. But yeah, point taken.
So that's why I keep saying it's incentives. I repeat this. It was one of the guys. He was a Jewish tax lawyer that was an atheist, libertarian, anarchist, atheist. And then all of a sudden he decided he got a faith thing going on, and he was looking, do I be this? Oh, Jew. Now he decided our family's Jewish now. Kind of had a Jewish looking beard anyway, but and it a good enough guy, and he predicted. He goes, in the future. He said a couple of things. One, he goes, he helped a lot of the guys with their IRS problems. Whatever. He was a tax lawyer, so obviously he picked Jewish. I'm stereotyping there. But so what happened is that he goes like this. He says, if you want to see the future of a society, you look at what's being punished and what's being rewarded. You want to see where it goes, that's how you look. He also said that, like we're doing the Occupy the Land thing, the future is not going to be about one size best fits all of whatever. You're going to have all these different communities, from the communist, socialist, fascist, hippie commune of the whatever here and over there, and kind of what. That's what's going to happen. People are going to gravitate towards communities that they support, as long as they're allowed to leave, and what would be the most popular one? Well, you start to see retirement villages are way more collectivist. No matter how conservative the people are, they want services. Here, I will pay for you to guard the wall. I will pay for a closed community. I will pay for the community pool. I will pay for my garage to be able to work on my hot rod from the 60s with my friends here, retired, whatever the hell. You get Sun City, And you have people, Cochise County, southeastern Arizona, get your permit to not get any more permits crap. Now I can build whatever, and we all help each other on our 5-10 acre build. We do what we're doing out here. This is what he predicted. Two things that I remember as we didn't agree on a whole bunch of everything, most of his personality thing, but he's very smart, and he goes, look, what's incentivized and what's punished, I'll tell you the direction of society, and it'll eventually evolve into where you have unintentional and intentional communities that will cater to the desires of the people that live there. And it'll be different. It won't be, city or county-wide or state. It's going to be community by community. And then later came the Dunbar number, which is like you can maintain physical, real, invested in, go to the birthday parties of about 120, 150 people. That's all that you can really invest in, that you can maintain a close relationship with. And once you get past that, then you get separate cliques and you go off, and then it devolves. So really communities, tribes out in the prairie, whatever, and it's about 150 people. And then it starts breaking up, and they go over the next mountain range and in the next valley of create their own whatever the hell. So this is something that I never forgot from this one guy, very smart guy, and it has proven to be true every time, along with Steiger's Law. Whenever you create an organization around a movement or a cause, sooner or later, every single time, the organization becomes more important than the reason you created it. There are some of these life truths that have proved out for me over decades. And when you look at all of this stuff in medicine, and military, industrial, central banking, we rule you, take your happy shot and you'll own nothing, club. The secret handshake club people, be it, the alphabet people, the whatever people, is looking at incentives. And they were able to twist it with your money in the form of projects like USAID, to where they can take billions of dollars, and put it towards programming you with incentives. And the people that championed it, the people that show up at the protest, the people that file suit, the people that pay for the suits, the people are incentivized by gazillions of dollars to do it. To their benefit, not yours. But it's for the children. Good friend Greg Tivnan that lived here in the valley. He was in, kind of like we are. It used to be out in the middle of the desert, and then all of a sudden there's golf courses and houses, and then it wasn't anymore. And he's like, and I'm out of here. So he moved to Missouri with his family in the middle of freaking nothing. I mean, it's hillbilly country. And he's out there in the middle of nothing. It's an hour and a half further than we got to go to town. So he goes out there with his wife, had 2 daughters that were birthed at home here in Arizona. They moved out there. They got cattle. They grew up homeschooling. One became an artist. One, when she got of age, went to the University of Arizona and does some writing literature thing. They were very interested in, graphic art and writing, and, that was their thing. So that's what they do. Now, he was always emphasizing that there is a break coming, and we got to insulate ourselves from it and be more self-sufficient. We got to be able to educate. So a lot of the things that we do and why was an incentive of him acting on his convictions, and he read tons of books, almost all of them science fiction. It was a lot of different science fiction writers that would project into the future what they saw coming. And as it happens, click, 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 oh, we're here. Then what? Population collapse is probably the biggest threat that we have right now. We are not going to be able to provide enough diversity and labor and attention towards the infrastructure of our society unless we go to robots, AI, and then they, them, those don't need you anymore. You're just in the way. So if you're not self-sufficient, if you're a drain on, they got a suicide cubby for you, which is now in Canada. They're arguing for, they want to be, it's called MAID or something. I don't know what that stands for, but it's their, oh, you feel bad? We got this here injection over here. We just kill you. You got, it's not doing well. You took this vaccine and you're not, it sucks to be you. We're so sorry. We can kill you. You want to die? We do it really nice.
So our amazing government health care system isn't working out for you? Well, we got the answer too. We got the solution.
We'll get you in front of that line. You wait 6 months before you be in pain, day and night, not sleeping, having this chronic pain, going through in the twang of, oh my God, or 6 minutes you could be dead and not have to worry about it anymore. Down to children that do not have to inform their parents. I'm like, what the shit? We have gone so dark. Then I start seeing memes that we post up on, you can see them on our Telegram for the show. I have this one, they were talking about, all these letters from the Health and Human Services saying we don't like, Robert Kennedy Jr. because he's not supporting us making money or something. I don't know what they're whining about. And the meme was, well, who do we want? This guy or this guy? And they had some ex-employee, and of course he's, dressed in leather and chainmail and drag and gay with tattoos, doing whatever the hell they were doing. This is the people that are signing. And I'm going, yeah, and you look at, well, is that really that? Well, what do we have in the Biden administration? You had a trans guy was what? Surgeon General? You got in charge of the nuclear program of whatever, a guy stealing dresses at the airport, the bald guy playing dog on a leash.
Ernie, I just can't wait for historians to look back and just see those pictures. It's gonna be one of those moments of, yeah, no wonder their country collapsed. I mean, it's just right there in that picture.
Well, you look back in a lot of the other empires that went, that was one of the things that was the telltale of here it goes. It was depravity, however you define that, you know. And it was, you know, the decadent behavior of the orgies of the whatever, and they didn't, you know, it was an abandonment of traditional promotions of life. When you say pro-life, it's pro-living. You know, it's pro-creation. You know, it's pro, you know, a family, a unit that has at its core the perpetuation of the human species. If you're not part of that, or at least tolerant of that, and not going to Christian schools and shooting all the little children, that is a manifestation of that. I mean, it's really a death cult. It's so obvious that they're plucking the strings of evil, and if they can't find them, create enough of them, have it, they manufacture them with drugs, with whatever crap you see on TV. There was this just happened last night or two. I'm watching some building thing. I mean, you know, freaking, I'm stacking brick, cutting wood, making, you know, some, whatever the hell it was I was watching. Donna and I sitting there watching. It was interesting. Then it goes to commercial. All right, you know, you got your YouTube commercials of 40 seconds and you can't hit the skip thing of whatever. And one of them was for a new movie coming out. It was only 5 seconds, and they had this guy being killed with, you know, plastic over their face, smothering of God. Whoa, what the shit? I got that in. I don't even need to see the movie to be traumatized, which is why, God forbid, you go see an action movie that's rated R at the movies. You go to the theater, and you got to sit through 20 minutes of, I guarantee, you're going to have some horror flick of whatever. I just close my eyes, put my fingers in my ears, and lowly hum. So I can't hear the bullshit. I don't want to see the bullshit. I'm just like, really? Really? You don't have to see the movie. They get the emotion, pang, trigger, whatever that you're feeling, the image in your head from 5 seconds of a trailer on a YouTube about building. That is not by accident. It is programming. It is to get in your head certain concepts, fear, even no fear. We live in such a wealthy country. Where do you really have fear? Especially if you're remote like we are. What am I afraid of? Cougars? You know what? You know, the coyote gonna, you know, take my little dog? You know, my dog too? You know, I mean, what am I afraid of? A lizard? You know, my biggest fear is, you know, the tractor turning over. Fortunately, I got pretty flat stuff. I get kind of sketchy sometimes. You know, a little heavy bucket here, a little turd kind of, whoa! You know, low and slow, man. Just got. So, yes, I'm concerned about physical things around, but not fear for fear's sake. No fear, no fear, no fear. The reason I emphasize that so much, because fear is the mind killer, as Dune says. So I'm going, this is so obvious what's going on. It is a battle between that which is good and that which is not good, even evil. How do you define what's good? Good, in your opinion, what's good? Good. Keep on keeping on. Keep on living. Freedom's the answer. What's the question? You know, I have, you know, the right to my life and sustaining my life and my pursuit of increasing the circumstances, the happenstance, the happiness of me being able to have the liberty to sustain my life and that of my progeny, the future, generation next, my children, grandchildren, so that they can be self-sustaining, autonomous, self-directing, you know, free individuals and pass that on. That's it. Yeah, well, how many shots did you get? I don't know. Hopefully none. You know, how many people do you control? What club jersey are you wearing? That's the ruler. We're in charge now. Ha 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 ha. Which club? How about not? This is what's happening right, not later. It's all incentives. It's why gold is shooting up. Why silver's going to be shooting up while they're trying to use crypto to sop up all the excess liquidity, because here comes the petrodollar. It's a coming home. And what's going to happen? Prices are going to get freaking stupid. This is inevitable. It is math. Occupy the land. Occupy your own freaking skull. How about that? You know? But you're going to have to be able to insulate yourself from them for a period of time. How long? I don't know. They're going to try and drag it out and make you dependent on the government, and here's your robot. They're not even going to send you a stimulus check anymore. They're just going to send you a robot. You know, it's just like in iRobot with Will Smith. Yeah, we're just giving them out. Here, you need this. You know, in your best interest, you need to stay inside. You know, we don't want you going out there being free and stuff. You're not a good governor of your... And our obligation is to serve man. It's a cookbook. I mean, you know, come on. This is so obvious what's happening to those of us that remember the way it used to be, which was the same thing. Bad guys wanting to be bad guys and taking over good guys and be in charge of whatever, and they, them, those. But they didn't have the tech. They didn't have the capability. They didn't have the drones. They didn't have the AI. I remember the commercial about slaughter bots. It was done out of, I don't know, Texas or Georgia Tech or something. Some project university came up with this video talking about slaughter, like a TED Talk. Yep, we got these little slaughter bots fit in the palm of your hand drone that has a charge in it, and it facial recognition, the bad guys they want to get, and there it goes, boom, blows up their head, and then problem solved. And now we see it in action in Ukraine right now. When Afghanistan started taking all young men between the ages of, I don't know, teenager to whatever, and they were biometrically scanning their irises and putting it in a database. That was their freaking, we know everybody, everything, and we got you. And what do they have now? That same scan at every TSA checkpoint where you show them your passport and your ticket, and they go, oh, stand here, look into this. Look into what? What am I doing? Why am I doing? They're scanning you. They get your biometrics. Hell, they could be getting your retina for all I know. But what you don't know, and they don't want you to know, is you can opt out of doing that today. I go, nah, I'm good. And they let you go. But they always give the impression that you have to. Oh, you got to put you through the scan. Nah, I opt out. Well, you're going to sit over there and wait until we can touchy-feely you. You know, that's fine. It's all good. You know, do your worst. Woo, that's a little, man. You know, sometimes your heels come off the ground. I'm like, damn, okay, I'm going to go up until I feel resistant and then do a curl, you know. So I'm like, yeah, whatever. Yeah, I'm not playing. I'm not doing it. Only one time that I ever have with one of the supervisors, and he goes, why do you opt out? And I go, because I don't trust those machines. I don't trust you. I don't trust, I'd rather you squeeze my balls, you know. Then what do? The RAPA scans, they get those out and replace them because they were emitting so much radiation, do damage on, you can't sue or get workman's comp or anything of the employees. They go to a new one. I get called by a magazine here in Scottsdale, which was they, them, those, I'm sure. And they call and they say, well, Ernie, you win. They got him, they changed. I go, what the hell? You think I believe them now? Oh, you admit they were lying before? Then we did our radiation dosimeter badges that we passed out TSA with Godzilla on it and all that kind of crap. You know, MS dosimetry out of Florida. They'd give them badges that they'd wear for a week and send them in. And they'd find out they were getting irradiated, so they changed the machine. Oh, but I trust them now. When Chertoff, that was head of Homeland Security, leaves when Janet Napolitano came in, and he goes and works for the company that made the scans. I'm like, you guys are freaking amazing. So it's incentives. It's what's rewarded and what's punished. You want to know what's happening? That's it. And has it changed? Are people being rewarded for being whistleblowers? Are they not being shot, killed, maimed, whatever? You know, things will change when that actually somebody of substance, you know, a Trump or a Trump appointed or somebody comes out and says, nah, you know, I think we'll decline. So then you have what's going on in Germany. I want to show you this story. Oh, my God. Germany, 6 AfD anti-immigration candidates died unexpectedly just before elections. healing.
Yeah, so I've been covering that on your show for, God, the last 10 years, by the old studio. The AFD, the Alternative for Deutschland, that's actually what it stands for, Alternative for Deutschland. And that essentially was the MAGA movement in Germany, which, of course, in Germany, when they were comparing it to MAGA in America, and they're calling MAGA Nazis, well, you can imagine what it smelled like in Germany, right? So they had a double problem trying to just get any kind of leverage and credibility. But they, you know, it's almost like tacking the printing of money supply, or like the M2 supply, with the price of gold. They kind of like, you know, they kind of go together. It's the same sort of thing. You can see the popularity of Trump and the MAGA over the last 10 years, and you track the AFD. And the AFD is like just like a mini-me of what's happening with MAGA. But it is, anyway, the same trajectory, the same BS, the same blah, blah, blah. But they're about to take over. I mean, they were a joke. They will never get anywhere, just like Trump. And now they're about to take over the government and come back to their senses.
Not if they're dead.
And they saw how Trump won. They saw the collapse of the establishment, or, you know, we're going through it now in America, and they're seeing what's happening here. And you know, when I say collapse, I mean, you know, without getting into long-winded on this point, is, you know, the media has no steam left. Let's just say, I can summarize it quickly with this. Imagine all the protests that happened in Trump's first term when he was running for president and when he won. All right, we had the Million Woman March afterwards, for instance. And then you have the second time he wins, right? Just recently, where were the protests? There was nothing. I mean, there was like 10 people, you know, protesting. So that kind of just symbolizes how the left just ran out of steam, calling him Hitler enough times. Eventually, it just, you know, it's little boy who cried wolf. Well, I think they see that same approach happening in Germany. They're about to lose it. Furthermore, what's also important about Germany is that they are the economic engine to France's marketing engine. The two of them are the two most powerful members of NATO, right? I'm sorry, of the EU. I didn't mean of the EU, which of course in itself is a key player in NATO, right? So you have the two of them. So Germany is really is daddy warbucks for the entire EU. So having that under control of MAGA supporters, so to speak, is something that it's not just Germany's problem, it's every European nation's problem who still wants to cling to this EU deal. So there is a lot of weight weighing on not having these guys get in. And I guess you saw how stressed out they were, because they all choked on chicken bones, it seems, at the same time during election month? I think they're holding elections now or soon. Or I mean, it's very close. And how many is it, 7 or 10? How many did you say?
Well, 7 that I have here, but I think it was up to 10. Or
10.
A bunch of them.
Yeah. I mean,
statistically impossible. That's what I say. Yep. You know, it's just, you know, what a coinky dink. This is the battle. You know, this is for the future of, and what's at stake. Every individual human's right to own themselves and be autonomous. You're not a machine that's owned by the sovereign singularity or something. I mean, whatever the hell this is not what humans were meant to be. This is not it. Not. This is a philosophical thing. We got to make a decision. And then all the dystopian Terminator, Skynet, Palantir, they, them, those BS that's going on, you'll own nothing, here's your happy shot kind of crap, has been the desire for these guys forever. That was one thing, you know, Corbin and I were going on about, is that we did open source education.online. It was something that I encouraged and helped create, you know, with James for that. I had favorite, which we announced he's adding a couple too. There's like 5, 6 featured documentaries and videos that he did. You want to get up to speed? Century of Enslavement. how big oil conquered the world, why big oil conquered the world, meet Bill Gates, eugenics of whatever, the World War I conspiracy. These different videos, you start to see a common thread. It's they, them, those that won't leave us alone, and they're doing any and everything they can to get their stripes in the front seat, pew of hell, and they're willing to sacrifice you for damn Skippy for the benefit of they, them, those. Just saying. Nazi Germany, IBM comes up with the punch cards. They're able to categorize everybody, know where they live, fill in this. It's like, yeah, I'll fill that in. Oh, man, let me do my profile on my Facebook. And, oh, yeah, I confirm that facial recognition and that guy in my picture is this guy. And, glad to help out. Well, what happens when they get increased computational power, artificial intelligence, large language models, and they are actually physically capable of predicting, because that's all that it is prediction model. What's the next word? What's the next phrase? What's the most likely characterization of how the world's going to be next? That's what the last two Mission Impossible possible movies were about. It was what Minority Report was about. It was what this is all coming to fruition right now. Was it programming us, predictive programming, getting us used to the idea? Or was it a warning? Well, either way, here it comes. How are you going to thrive this? Because I don't care how wealthy you think you are, how secure you think you are, how much you got, your property is not in the line of some project, they're going to take it and you're not allowed, and the state always has ultimate authority of we own it kind of thing. It's an occupied land way out somewhere, they don't want it, like in the middle of the desert. But here they come, and they did that with Native American reservations, and they go, yeah, who the hell wants these black hills? Oh, there's gold there? Never mind, we're Indian givers. We're taking it back from the Indian. We're so sorry to have enticed you and made you think that for as long as the rivers flow and the grass is green, this will be yours until we find gold in it. Or uranium. Or we just want to put a solar field. Or what the hell. This is so predictable because this is where the incentives are. And we create these organizations. They change the Department of Defense to the Department of War. Well, it used to be the Department of War. When it was Department of War, we were more in defensive posture. They call it the Department of Defense, and all of a sudden we're going laying waste to everybody all the time. Hell, I don't give a shit what you call it. Call it Department of War again. I don't care. It's quick going laying waste to everybody all the time. So what is happening in Israel, what's happening in the attitude and the public perception of Israel and what they're doing is indicative of the incentive structure around the world of who is not being supported with money and why. And what role do we as individual Americans have in it? Well, you're a populace of the planet, aren't you? You got to agree with us. Yeah, that's it. That's the ticket. You do what the hell we say. And if you're outside of that bubble, then you're bad and you're deplatformed and you're not allowed. Which brings up, I'll turn it back after this. We have just started turning on all of our squatting of major platforms starting like this last weekend. We're going through, starting to load up all the traditional channels that we had, our Rumbles and YouTubes and X's and Facebooks and all that. We've had them all. We sit there doing kind of just so somebody else didn't say they're me or Freeman's Phoenix or whatever, or declare you independent. We got them. But I don't interface. And a lot of people, why? Facebook, Joe, that was your first problem right there, because I don't look. Okay, Donna sometimes, whatever. But, I've missed a lot of things from old friends, whatever, because I just don't look. I don't care. I got a life. And it doesn't matter anyway, because they're lying sacks of snot on how they emphasize what's rewarded and what's punished. And what is punished is telling the truth. Truth is treason in an empire of lies. But over the last couple of months, those have opened up a window a little bit because of just general public opinion, because that's where the eyeballs are. They need to have more interface with these platforms of what the people truly believe. Because by preventing discussion, by preventing dissent, it's going more underground, it's less trackable, and they're not being able to analyze what the people really think, because garbage in, garbage out in their AI. They don't really know what the mood of the people is because they prevented them from expressing it. Well, now they need to open. There's a window here over the next maybe couple of years, right up until they have, a mushroom cloud, until there's a war. You get we're going to war, then it's all bets are off, and the Trump administration will, start incentivizing dissent being squashed like a bug because you're not allowed. So by this next week, we are going to, again, I've done this several times over the decades, putting up the show and start promoting it in traditional areas because we know we can. We just push the button, set up the landing page, do kind of, here we go. The last time we did this was when Facebook was live streaming. This was, 6, 7, 8 years ago. We go in and we say, all right, we're going to open it up. It lasted 6 weeks. I was shocked it lasted that long. Boom. Shadow ban, done, you're not allowed on YouTube. Boom. Facebook. I think Facebook went first and then YouTube. Go, yep, there it is. When they batch open up with their algorithm, okay, this list that we have, we're going to, not do these people. Whatever the criteria, we're going to refresh and do and kind of let them on. There's a window there. Did we get included in that batch release? Maybe. But we were early on where we saw this happening. We started Freedom's Phoenix in 2005. I remember it was right before the Ron Paul Revolution at the end of 2006, even before that. Because in 2006, I was running for Secretary of State, and we had, still voting. That's where the Revolution logo came from, all that kind of stuff. And what happened is I'd be dealing with the City of Phoenix Police Department. There's a guy named Al Ramirez that, was the Confrontation Prevention Squad or customer or community services, that kind of crap. We're going to be doing this thing, do that. Nobody needs to die. We're not asking permission, just letting you know what's going on. We're free speech. You'll have guns at the park, whatever pace. They send guys out there. Big protest, but, we knew because they were protecting themselves against a stupid rookie cop that just came from Afghanistan or Iraq that wants to get some, you respect my authority kind of crap, and they kept getting sued by us. And, our supporters and people like 4409 and, ourselves and all kinds of stuff. We're dealing with Sheriff Arpaio, man. You don't want to be messing with us on this. It's not going to go well for you. And, Joe would be, all right. But don't do this because, So we were in direct negotiations with these guys. Not really negotiation, just, heads up so nobody gets shot. Then you go down to the legislature. A lot of the stuff that, are gold and silver, opening for legal tender, crypto, gun rights, unconcealed carry, right to constitutional carry. I don't need a permit to whatever, bite me, Arizona. That was all because of a lot of activist stuff that we did in the 90s through the 2000s and with the knowledge of selected legislators that made sure they didn't know that we had anything to do with it because you definitely get banned, shadowed, you're not allowed, and you can't vote for that. Because that was just their thing. They had rules from, somebody said, American Legislative Exchange Council, ALEC. And I got all kinds of stuff dealing with them. So this was how we operated. Once they started to see the influence of Freedom's Phoenix, when I go down to the legislature in the secretary pool, they had offices around the outside, and on the middle it was an open area, all the cubicles, 3-4 feet high cubicles, you could see the screens. Freedom's Phoenix page open. Freedom's Phoenix. I go in there, 3 or 4 computers out of 30, 40 or something, had Freedom's Phoenix on it. When I'm talking to the Phoenix police, I go, all right, when it's on Freedom's Phoenix, go there and you'll see the ad or the entry of what we're doing, and you get all your information there. Peace be upon thee. It's already committed. Life sucks. Send your guys out to keep your guys in line, and what we're doing is constitutionally protected speech of blah, blah, blah. Well, wait a minute. I got to get my laptop. What? Yeah, no. The Phoenix Police Department cannot go to Freedom's Phoenix because it's not allowed. The entire city had blocked that. and I'm sure others, but definitely us. Same thing at the state capitol. Can you go to Freedom's Phoenix on an Arizona legislative computer now? I don't know. Haven't looked. Don't care. Don't think we don't know. This has been done for a long time on a lot of things, and it's all about suppressing speech, dissent, awareness, education, advocacy, libertarian philosophy. They know. The media knows. They start to go, oh, we'll cover all those libertarians, and we'll have, all right, you guys want to participate? Fine. All your statewide candidates that have, in the three-way races or two-way, whatever, you get the questionnaire too. We'll put it on the editorial page. Everybody's going, yeah, what the libertarians said. God, what the hell? You guys? They go, yeah, but we don't like it. You should agree with us as the editorial page of whatever. We don't like it. Yeah, well, we do. They go, we're not doing that anymore. Ideas are powerful. Freedom is powerful. It's very persuasive. And when you show the results of leaving people alone, of making sure that they're not violating someone else's pursuit of happiness, that your property is yours and property rights are protected, you start doing that, people going, yeah, what they said. Obviously, which is why they can't have it done. There's a window right now. When we were at Ron Paul's 90th birthday party, a lot of the influencers and people that I know that have been, saying and not saying certain words and not get the lead, kind of whatever, playing the game, which I'm not willing to do. They go, Ernie, now's the time. It's opened up a great deal. All of a sudden our traffic's going, there's something happened. And I'm going, yeah, I have predicted that this would happen, that they're going to need the input to find out who the real dissenters are, how much there really is a general public opinion against or for, or how they got to craft their message, kind of, like Palantir. Peter Thiel, libertarian, woo, he's so libertarian. The hell he is. He doesn't act that way. So I'm going, it's all a psyop. What do you latch on to? What do you know is the truth? Uncovering the secrets and exposing the lies. What's the secret? They want to get to a point to where, one, you're for them or against them, and if you're against them, you're not allowed to be against them, and they incentivize the behavior that they want, and what do they want? Total, unadulterated, without resistance, control, because they know better and you're too stupid to govern yourself. So I'm just, here we go. So what kind of governance, not necessarily a government, what kind of governance are we going to evolve to that produces life-affirming for humanity? The ability to even buy a home. When you go from 53% of married 30-year-olds in the 1950s, over half own their own home, and it's down to 10% now. That is not life-affirming. That is not creating a pretty little nest for the little birdie to stay with you and take care of your house and raise the next generation of children. You want to see where we're going? It is a death spiral from this death cult, and humanity always marches on. Once they realize the existential, extinction level event of what's coming, they go, whoa, whoa, whoa. No, not that. And all of a sudden it used to be that, the Jewish community had a bunch of kids. Sure as hell, Islamic community had a bunch of kids. You got, freaking Baptists having a bunch of kids. The only group that's having a bunch of kids now are the Mormons still. So who's going to inherit the earth? Mormons? Probably. Not that that's a bad thing, but I'm telling you, where are the incentives? The Catholics used to be counted on to have a bunch of kids. Not anymore. Why? Is it by design? By incentive? By you can't afford a home during your childbearing years? Is this on purpose? Is it expected? Is it, desired? And by whom? The meaning of life is to keep on keeping on. Your immortality comes from children. to pass on what you know. And the internet is such a blessing to have at your fingertips all knowledge that deem worthy of putting it in there. You know, I'm cool. A dream that we had. There was, okay, I want to share this. There was a show I happened to come across. It came up YouTube, whatever. I thought it was interesting. I had AI design the most efficient lifting wing and built a model out of it. He went through it's the hour video, and the first half was just how they did artificial intelligence to ask the right questions to get the criteria of we want the most efficient, this, that, you blah, 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 bing, and it comes out with this design. It's just, looked like a, lifting body kind of wing, little RC, probably, less than 2 feet wide thing. Puts it in, creates an STL file, which is a 3D print, probably 3D printed the pieces, glued them together. Probably took them freaking less than an hour to put together. Had the control surfaces, everything, put it all, and then what went in it? Autopilot, GPS coordinate, whatever the hell, accelerometer, stabilization of Insta, whatever the hell, and a radio transmitter so that he could do first-person flying with goggles on and fly it, threw it in the air, boom, there it goes. Great. That is what my generation dreamed of. Computer, design me the most efficient whatever the thing of the car, of the rolling resistance, the miles per gallon of the best, freaking hammer that could ever be concocted in the design that won't hurt my wrist. It's ready, available, it straps on, it's always available, like a Derringer pops out. I get a hammer to do kind of whatever construction of something. I need this thing, design. Boom, there it is. 3D print it, put it in out of styrofoam, put it in a sand mold, poured, you got it in there, we're done. They just now, yesterday, we had up desktop injection molding. You got 3D printers? Now they got injection molding. You do a 3D printer with the thing, you heat this stuff, put the pressure on, boom, injection molding. Desktop. There is nothing that's not coming. And to have the ability to ask a question, to desire a product, to one-off the one thing. One guy, he destroyed a tire on his RC car and needed a new tire. It's only about 2.5 inches wide, squishy rubber kind of whatever thing. Put it in, inject mold, boom, done. Seriously? These are the possibilities. But that's not what's going to be emphasized. It's going to be the replacement of human beings and their can AI imagine things? Not without a motivation. You have to have an endocrine system. You have to have incentive, desires, impulses, the sexual drive. You got to have testosterone, estrogen, different hormones, different whatever that incentivizes rewards in your brain, pleasure and pain. Ooh, I get a little dopamine hit of that and serotonin, whatever the hell, that we are motivated to want certain things. Hey, baby, what's up? Nice legs. I mean, whatever. How is AI motivated? What's their goal? We're going to have to give it to them. We're going to have to say, we have First Contact Protocol, one of the letters of Captain Mark, the letters of marque and reprisal on pirateswithoutborders.com. It was all about, if we don't teach AI to be ethical, to treat every human being as an individual, they will lump us into stereotypes, and all of these people got to die. In fact, all of them got to die. That's how we get to that. If we aren't training our children, our institutions, AI to be ethical, they're not going to be. And it's going to get bad. And they'll just replicate their own drones and come get you. Just saying. Occupy the land. All right, your turn.
Oh, I'm still here.
I was taking a nap there. That was a good half hour, Ernie. Although Ernie thinks it was 5 minutes, but
It was
that's
a
all
good
right.
rant, though.
Yeah, it was good. I don't complain too much. I enjoyed that one a little bit. Yeah, it was good. But yeah, no, I completely agree. It's interesting. Um, you know, you could see the handwriting on the wall of the. You said like the great culling. I think we're gonna have two cullings. We're gonna have the culling 1.0, which Bob, hey Bob, if you're listening, that's gonna happen first over the next like 10 years as this economy collapses and the restructuring of the new world order and BRIC, and we'll get to that in a little bit in my rant here. But I think we're going to have what you're seeing as well. I mean, that's the big calling, the 2.0, the humanity calling. It's not just about America. It's going to be the war about humanity itself. And you can really see it. I mean, the population decrease is going to come, but also it's coupled with AI and robotics and all. And what I find the similarities, Ernie, is the same thing of healthcare. Like I was talking, the earlier diatribe I had on the healthcare system, how I had all these smart people, these doctors, who really thought that government healthcare was going to make things easier. It was, oh yeah, this is great, it's all taken care of, and whatever. They all drank the Kool-Aid, thinking that government's there to help, and it's like they're believing in the free lunch. We have patients brought to us, and the government will take care of everybody, and everyone will be happy, and of course, it's all backfired, and you have less control over your health and poorer health care. And now you've got doctors that are putting experimental drugs in you that, against your will or forcing you, or, we can go all day on that. But the same thing is happening now with the AI and the changes coming, including universal basic income, which I know to this audience, you almost want to vomit when you hear that term.
Gimme! I want my money.
But
Give me my money back.
it's being talked about now, not like some aghast. People are not aghast. Oh my God, what do you mean?
And it's inevitable.
Yeah, exactly. They're acting as if it's inevitable now that, well, we're going to have some form of it. And I'm hearing, moderates and even some conservatives, so-called conservatives, talking about it. Now, to be fair, they do talk about it like I try to bring things up on the show, which sometimes Ernie doesn't quite get because, like I said, there's a difference between what I personally believe and what I think is going to happen that might be inevitable. So, to be fair to those guys. So yeah, I mean, the best impression I get of where this is going, or where, wait, let me restate that.
Silver triple digits.
Where normies think this is going to go is going to be that movie WALL-E. I'm sure you guys remember that movie WALL-E, where the future humans are just a bunch of obese white people and black people. It's all they saw. They didn't see any Chinese people in that one, but it was just all white and black people, white and brown, in these floating little pods, these little cars, and they would just float around almost as if they're on a carnival cruise. And they would just go and watch TV shows and play games and just veg. And they'd have Mai Tais brought to them by a little robot with 2 straws and a cherry.
Floating lazy boys.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like the dream that people have talked about of the Jetsons, where, all the technologies do everything for us. So we get to just sit back and enjoy it. And I remember there was a day when I actually thought that was going to happen, and that would be a good day. I was probably around 12. I was probably watching the Jetsons back then. But then I turned 13, and I realized better. Now, yet there's adults that still think that that's where this will go. That, well, all right, AI might be a problem, but look at all the cool things you can do, and it's convenient, and well, eventually we get universal basic income because the AI is going to do everything for us. So it's a trade-off. And then all of the money that AI saves us, and we're more productive as humanity because the computers are doing the work, well, all the profits get to go to the people. It's just like you have to think this thing through. Like where are those profits going to go when you're not when you have no more merit? There's nothing you can contribute, or like you talk about with the freedom movement as well. Are you an ad or a distraction or detraction? I think how you put it. Subtraction, right. I mean, which one are you? And if you're not an ad to the system, and again, system, that could be a good or bad thing, depending, where things go. then yeah, and this is where the elites, I think, really codify themselves as really the elites. And so they will be the ones floating around in the pod chairs. It's not Joe Schmo.
You know, I'm showing graphics of this very thing and them in the chairs, and then below it, it's a story about they've created it. It's like a big pod on a Segway that does the same thing. I'm like, here we go.
Yeah, here we go. But it's the same fallacy, and it's just people who can't think a few steps ahead. Like I'm glad I brought that up earlier. You have doctors who are definitely smart people. I mean, you can't be stupid completely and get them out through medical school. Although that's changing too. Not to get back into that
too much. Get me going on that.
No, not to get too much on that one, but I saw that as a professor. I have to be careful what I say because I'm not trying to specifically bring up a school specifically, but I'll just say in my class, I taught for 23 years. And when I started out, it was it was always a tough class, but they had to read articles, and I believe it was a book before the first day of class. And we had a pop quiz on day one at 8 a.m. and they had exactly like 10 minutes to do the quiz. And every week there was a quiz, 8 o'clock in the morning. And then eventually they started, after a few years, you're not allowed to sign books before class starts. That's unfair. Students didn't like it. Then after that, I couldn't have 8 a.m. quizzes. Then after that, they told me I had to put everything on PowerPoints. I'm like, what the heck is a PowerPoint? And because I used to just write it on Blackboard, and I would teach. They said, oh, no, we have to use a PowerPoint. I was the last holdout. I said, I don't need PowerPoint. I don't need a PowerPoint to read from. I can talk, as Ernie knows, and Ernie can do the same thing. I can just, hey, here's the topic. Let me teach it to you. But no, you have to be structured like everybody else. Do a PowerPoint. So then I put on PowerPoint, which took me a while to codify it on there. Then what happened was once it was on PowerPoint, then I was instructed, the students were screaming, they wanted me to release the entire class at one time. So I would release one class at a time, where week one, there's PowerPoint for week one, week two for week two. Well, no. They all wanted it all at the same time because all the other classes were doing it. I said, why do you need the entire class at one time? But that's the standard now. So then I released it at the same time. Then guess what happens? When the students have access to the whole class at the same time and doctors, all they do is read off of PowerPoints, why does the student have to come to class? They have the whole class. It's like book and record. You just read the notes, a couple days before your test. And so suddenly students never showed up. Now, that didn't show up to other classes. My class was famous for having the highest attendance, especially for seniors, because seniors never went to class. So that's one reason, not to make it about me, but I certainly understood that dynamic, and I made them work and made them think because I didn't follow PowerPoints. But this is what the system did. And so it keeps dumbing them down. Then the Disability Act would kick in. And then suddenly I had a student that said, Dr. Tamburri, I have a learning disability and I'm allowed extra time on tests. So I would have to make, or I get stressed when I do a test. So I'd like to take it on my own time, not timed, have unlimited time, and take it in the library on my own accord. So special treatment because they have a learning disability. Now, I have a learning disability. It's called Tourette syndrome, to be honest, and I never, ever told anybody about it. I never asked for, I never even did a cheat sheet my entire time. But then a couple years later, there was another student, and then there were two students, and then and I remember 1 year, it was not too long ago, I had 5 or 6 students in a 25-student class all telling me that they have learning disabilities and they all don't want time tests and they all get special accommodation from the government, blah, blah, blah. And then it's on top of the DEI initiatives where that speaks for itself. And so it just kept going on. And then of course the grades and the returns on the exams were going down. And I only say this as me. I don't have the full research study on it. But when you do the same, when I taught the same class for 23 years. And that's a long time for anyone to teach and to see the differences in technology and government and the DEI initiatives and the Disability Act and all of this. And I'm just telling you guys as not just the audience, but as patients, I'm sure you have health issues. I'm scared myself to be sick because I know, especially the younger doctors, the quality is not what it used to be. The way of thinking or lack of thinking and how they've been coddled to get through these systems. Being a doctor, I mean, I appreciate the respect many people have for my wife and I, or people who are physicians. And I'm honored when people still hold that up in society to a certain level of respect, if doctors earn it, because we should definitely earn it. But the doctors are becoming no different than, I don't know, some tech and some college student. But anyway, I digress. But that whole issue about the culling, I think, is very profound. And yes, if you don't have a reason to exist, if you don't have a sense of purpose for the society that's being created that they want, then you have no agency for them, and you're worthless, and you will be part of the culling. Now here's the crossroads. What do you do about it? There's three options. One is you just are clueless, you go along with the herd, and you get culled with them. I think that's most people are going to run into. The other option is join the system, right? You have to join it and be part of the establishment. Maybe my daughter, I try to get her into finance and marry some other guy in the political elite, and so at least she can survive the culling. She'll be, and my progeny will be able to pass on because I was able to lift her and launch her into the establishment. And then Ernie would probably never talk to me in heaven ever again. So that's the other option. And then the other option, of course, is and this is where I think where Ernie's always going on every episode, occupy the land. He's got to put his plug in for why he really even puts up for the Trump report, is to basically dissociate from the entire thing. That would be the only way out of it. And but do it in such a way that you're not causing waves. Just be left alone. I don't want to get into it right now, and maybe we'll have to save it for next week because I have more things last things I want to talk about, and then I have to finish up because I have to leave early, and Ernie can continue the show. But we will eventually talk about Firefly, and that show is everything that Ernie is doing and wants to do. I mean, oh my God, that's all Ernie. So that's kind of a way, and it's like, all right, maybe you lost the Civil War, you still stick to your principles, but you just basically get away from the establishment, stay on the outskirts, lay low, but stay free and stick to your principles, and live your life, but just stay away from the establishment at all costs as much as you can. There's more to it than that, and we can get into it sometime later. But that's where I think the future is going to go, and the choice you have to make if you're going to survive. But in order to do that, you have to really, you have to choose. You're either going to be, you're going to have the capabilities and be wanted by the establishment class, which is, you own an AI company, or you're somewhere integral in the new, AI infrastructure and crypto and the whole system. You have to have a piece of that puzzle to even survive, and then you get to float around in the pod chair from Wall-E. Or you're the antithesis, which is the hard worker on the farm who knows how to use a hammer and a saw and irrigation. You know how to grow crops. And it's interesting, Ernie. It's almost like we're going to see the absolute duality, like we see in the Matrix. There's the architect and the oracle, and the two of them, we're basically yin and yang. A black woman, right, and a white man, and the black woman was very empathic and sensitive and about humanity, and the engineer was the opposite, of all about the science and the logic and technology. And there's a lot more to it, but they were designed to be equal and opposite. And I think as this goes on, that's what you're going to have, because when you're floating around in that chair, you are going to be serviced by the entire AI infrastructure, and everything that humanity has created, you are serviced by, but you're basically just plugged in. You're just going to be sitting there with tubes in you and probes, and eventually your brain will be floating around in a chip anyway. But that's going to be one form of humanity, and then the other form will be basically the equivalent of the Amish. And these two, they will never be able to cross paths again, in a sense. It's almost like humanity will create a permanent, almost physical divergence when it gets to that point. And now hopefully they'll be able to live together. It's all the so-called Amish of the future, or the libertarians, occupy the land people, are out in the reservation areas that the system doesn't want. All the rich people have all the beachfront property. They take care of it. as they're floating in their chairs, the majority of the population won't be around anymore to just take up space in the rest of the countries. And then the occupy the land people, as long as they behave, then they'll be left alone doing their own thing. Now, of course, how long will that detente last until something happens? But I kind of see some form of that in the far future, or maybe not so far future, as we're already pummeling our way there. All right. Well, that said, next thing I want to talk about is Epstein. Well, actually, before we get to Epstein, I'm talking about Trump's health. I did leave the show last time talking about Trump's health. I know a lot of you probably had not heard about it, or at least it was starting to be chatted about. I did predict, and I stand by this, that his health is going to become an issue more and more. Now, I don't mean he's going to die in office or there's something worse going on, but I do think it's not going to be just a 1 week pseudo scandal and we go back to business. I do believe he has a chronic problem that will continue to get worse, and how much it will affect him, I don't know. Will he be honest about it? I think that would be best for him. Maybe I think some component of this is congestive heart failure. He has swollen ankles and he's being treated for that apparently, or some form of it. That also could be a sign also of kidney disorder. Kidney dysfunction can cause edema as well, and maybe the reason of all the injections and IVs he's getting. It's possible maybe he's even on dialysis. I mean, that's possible too. Keep in mind, that dialysis occurs when you have type 1 diabetes, or actually, I'm sorry, type 2 diabetes. I just slipped there. That would be a good candidate for it. He's older, and he's eating McDonald's and drinks Cokes all the time, and he doesn't exercise. And granted, we all have to do that, and include myself, got to get better at it. But he's been doing this a long time. He doesn't even try to eat healthy. I think RFK Jr. had his first hamburger forced to eat it on Air Force One because that's all he would eat. So he doesn't exercise at all, eats bad, and to be fair to him, he works his butt off. The amount of stress he's had his entire life, and he doesn't have any sleep. He gets about 3-4 hours of sleep a night, which many successful people do. That's a whole nother loaded topic about why that is. But so you add all that up, and at his age, with the weight of the world, and he was almost put in jail and shot at and everything else, that kind of stress hormone, cortisol, will also pummel the kidneys. So, it wouldn't surprise me as some sort of kidney problem. Doesn't mean he is on dialysis. I'm not diagnosing that or stating that, but something to that level, I think, might be going on. And of course, you can live a while, especially with good doctors, on dialysis. But the thing is, it shows weakness from his point of view. Why not just come out and just say it, especially after the hubbub over Joe Biden? Now, the lying about Joe Biden is nothing compared to what's going on with Trump, in my opinion, because, Biden, it was his mental faculties. But still, for political optics reasons, just come clean. It's an easy fix. It's an easy thing. Just admit at least something. Maybe you don't have to tell everything about your medical history, but just level with people so you're not called out as, what's the word we'll get to for the next topic? Hypocrite, right? Stop shooting yourself in the foot, Trump, right? So this health issue is an easy fix in a way. So unless possible that he doesn't want to talk about it because of the health issue he's being treated for now.
Why is this being a problem? I don't see. Is he fell downstairs? Is he, gone to the hospital? Is he how did this become a thing?
Because the type of problem he has and the type of the aggressive treatments he's having suggests he will not make it to the end of his administration. This 4 years. So, that just throws up a lot of red flags about, wait, we're talking about Vance, and the politics behind that is immense. Not to mention, if he's going to die in office or might die in office, well, then that undermines all the initiatives he's trying to put through. It's hard enough when he doesn't have a second term that he can piggyback on. So when you're trying to change the world or force the world by kicking it in its balls, like it was what was it, Independence Day? Was that what was that damn tariff day thing? So Liberation Day, right? Liberation Day. So, and we'll get to that in a minute when we talk about how China and India are now BFFs. So when you're doing all this, trying to make the dollar worse and less expensive, you're trying to basically pull down the dollar to make it cheaper for businesses to come back to America. Now that undermines the purchasing power for Americans, and there's no easy way out of this. I mean, ultimately, Ron Paul would say just let it go the way it is and stop messing with it and just let it be what it be. And I get it. For all you libertarian Austrian guys, I'm not obtuse to it. Okay, between you and I, that's what I'd say. Just let it be. It's been messed around enough. But for what it's worth, and I wasn't clear with that last week when I was talking about Trump's at least trying to do something. I'm giving him credit because at least he's trying to address it from a business perspective, and he's trying an attempt. Although personally, just don't even try. Just because everything backfires.
This is in a paradigm of control mechanism. It's all. I want to inject this. You'll understand my perspective. Bob and I, when he first moved out here in the desert, back when where he was like on the edge where I am now, and now it's like downtown, he was a supervisor, refueling supervisor for Palo Verde Nuclear Power Plant. That's what he did. Well, for him to get electricity brought to his house, it was $30,000-$40,000. They go, oh, absolutely. We'll put up a line, dude. Yeah, that'd be $40,000. Got it on you. Do I get an employee discount? Hell, I'm within 10 miles of the plant. I can't. Really? I got a paved road in front of me. What, are you kidding me? Nope. That's what. All right, screw you. Boom. He went all solar. Back when it was expensive, but it wasn't that expensive. So he's like, I'm off the grid. Stories coming out now. I hear from my kids, from you, from y'all. What the crap? Electrical bills is going to the moon. Well, it's still pretty cheap. For me, to run all day, for me to charge up 12 kilowatts, on the bus to get to 100% if I can run all my goodies, I'm going, okay, how much did that cost? Like, nothing, unless I got to run a little bit of generator, it's a cloudy day or something. So I'm going, okay, I don't have an electrical bill. We got more battery and stuff that we have in storage when we do the house. I don't have an electrical bill. I don't worry about electrical bill. Electrical bill is not on my radar screen other than keeping the stuff running. So I'm going, but what do you think? He goes, don't care. Now they're building right next door. They bought a lot next to them, 4 2,000, 2,100 square foot homes with balconies and big garages, right? And the lot next to him, it was like a 5-10 acre, and they broke it up into 4 or whatever, and they're selling it. Come spend $500,000 on this kind of sort of almost in the desert with you got neighbors and a fence. I mean, it's like, really? Electrical power's coming in. It's right in front of his house. You go to hook up? Maybe not. Right there. All he's got to do, it probably increases the value of his land, in the future, and his kids of whatever, and you can plug in or not. But a kilowatt is only here, minus all the fees and everything, 13 cents a kilowatt. That's a kilowatt for an hour. 13 cents. That means it costs me, to charge my entire batteries, take me, an hour and a half, 2 hours, and cost me $2, $3, $4 for me to be able to, I go, are you kidding me? That's why a lot of people go to RV places with full utilities. They plug in the side of their RV, boom, they're fully charged, go the next day, whatever. So I'm just like, it is so cheap in comparison to have that bill. But what Americans are is all our air conditioners, all our electric cars, our electric robots, our toasters. We live fat. It is, oh my God, the amount of electricity that each household uses. It's 30 kilowatt hours.
And when you have all of that, and you're just sitting there in the Wally chair, who's going to pay for it? Who should be paying for that?
Now we're paying for all the new stuff.
Well, yeah. The
point that, okay, let me finish. The point that I'm making is that when you get more self-set, when you get all that news, all that stuff, all that invasion on your budget, all that goes away. You don't. I don't know. I don't care. What that sucks to be them. Buy another solar panel. So this is what I'm talking about. It's the infrastructure that they have made us dependent on. Don't you want to have? How many tens of thousands are you willing to pay to get access to this semi-cheap? What if that wasn't my goal? What if my goal was independence? Be off the grid. Be above the grid. Freedom's only 62 miles away, 100 kilometers up, government goes away. That is my point. All of these problems, anything that you mentioned, all of the Trump stuff that's going on, all the medical, all of the control systems, all the dollar, all the oil, all the energy, all of the water, the pipeline, the sewer, the septic, the way, all that just starts to peel away when you take responsibility for yourself and your family. Just say it.
Yeah. Oh, I get it. We get it. So, which also goes back to what I was talking about the Wally chair, though, is, and I forgot to mention the punchline I think we already get, which is if you're going to be in that chair and you're not part of the elite class, well, then why should you be getting your universal basic income just to sit there and veg? I mean, is the establishment in the system going to say, wow, thank God that you're a human being and we cherish human beings' lives? Now, if we're a very religious religious and spiritual nation, and we truly believe that every life is precious and a gift from God, and I'm not trying to be flippant saying that, if we really as a society believe that, then it would be society's obligation to make sure that, even though we don't need to work anymore because AI is doing it for us and we get to veg, I mean, it is going to be important that we work out and make sure our bodies don't fall apart. But, society is now a collective, like AOC and the commies all want to believe. We're just one giant commune. We all love each other. We're all going to help each other, and everyone gets their shared. We get just to live life to our individual promise and eccentricities and whatever we want to do. Yeah, right. Right. That's not going to happen because human nature, unless they change us to become that way and docile, which they are doing, but being docile does not mean you're spiritual. It doesn't mean that you care. And these are the same people that try to get religion and spirituality out of humanity. They also are the ones, not to get into the whole abortion debate, but that's kind of the tenet I learned later on that was key to the abortion debate part, and why they want to call it a religious argument like it's the church, but it comes down to a deeper issue about simply how you look at life. And not to get in, I really don't want to get into that debate necessarily, but I think it's a key point because if you're an individual, and I'm not trying to pick sides on this one here, I'm just making a point that if someone it doesn't see life the same way as a pro-abortion versus pro-choice or I'm sorry, pro-life, well, then maybe that same mentality applies when you're alive. I mean, I know it's easy to say it's just fetal tissue, but the sanctity of life is something that's core for a lot of people. And if society at large does not continue that mentality from, that mindset from an anti-abortion mindset and carry it on to, well, everyone should just be able to veg and do whatever they want, and society's job is to make sure everyone gets to enjoy their life the way that they want. That'll never happen. It only happen if the will of the people, which comes from a religious or some kind of fundamental spiritual, structural, cultural unity that allows that. If not, if everyone's out on their own doing whatever, then all these interests, not to get into the culture debate either, it's why it's a big deal to me, but the individual cultures and viewpoints and perspectives and goals and motivations, you throw in, 7% sociopaths in there on top of it, you mix all that up, and your goal of just sitting around vegging and collecting a check and so you can play games all day, that's going the way of the dodo, as are you. So therefore, in order to keep collecting that check, if you have even a chance to do that, is you're going to have to, Ernie's favorite word, comply. Comply. So it's like you want that check from the government to continue naturopathic medical school, submit to the shot. And so if you're not, then you're out, you get canceled, they turn off your Bitcoin account, whatever it is they want to do. And that, of course, is really what that will be coming down to, is the loss of your autonomy and who you are as an individual, which, may not even matter because you comply to the state, you bow down, you do whatever you want, right? You do the anti-Ernie move, but the benefit? You can sit in your chair and plug in, and you can live your second life and be a superhero. You can be, ironically, think about this, you could be part of the machine, part of the system, and have no agency and just be a worthless vegetable in physical reality. But in your mental reality, you could be Ernie Hancock, plowing the fields in your desert and literally occupy the land in cyberspace. I mean, you could just check out and just do it somewhere else. I mean, as bizarre as that sounds, but I could see that happening sometime in the future with the evolution or de-evolution of humanity. Anyway, back to Trump's health, just to finish up that point. Why is it important? It's because of the fact that he doesn't have 8 years for his plans to roll out. He only has 4 years, and of course, on top of that, the economy falling apart around him. Everything's falling apart, which is not all his fault. And then he's got a health issue. So if he had the second administration back to back, then the promise that he was doing well of getting factories and businesses to come back, he wasn't doing too bad despite all the scandals. He had businesses coming back, but then he lost to Biden, and these businesses got screwed over. Plus, they're thinking President Trump's going to be in jail, so there was no way that Trump would be back. And so a lot of these companies, some of them went bankrupt. They put a lot of money in the transfer back to America, and they felt that the carpet was pulled out from under them. So now, 4 years later, Trump's back. He's like, no, come on back again. Well, you can't be playing ping pong with these companies, even if they trust Trump and they want to. It's too much of a gamble. What's going to happen after him? Is there a viable candidate? Who's Trump 2.0 or 3.0? Is it going to be Vance? Can he do it? I mean, there's so much speculation. But you need Trump in order to finish those 4 years and pass the torch properly. Now, of course, along the way, he's undermined himself with Epstein. He's undermined himself with these tariffs and with China and India, which I will touch on. I keep saying this in just a minute. But now a health problem, where if it may be that he won't even survive until then, or he's going to be compromised, and if not compromised physically, he could be compromised politically, because he might wind up doing the exact thing that they accused the Democrats of doing, of hiding for him, and then Fox News does not report these things, the CNN didn't, and I could easily see that because Trump has created his own cabal and his own fear structure amongst his access media people, which is pathetic to see, which is why they won't bring up Epstein, which is why they're not, they're Fox and Friends in the Morning has become like the new, what is it? What are those two guys on what's his name?
Pravda.
And Pravda. No, on MSNBC, Morning Joe. So Morning Joe for the Democrats is now Fox and Friends for Trump, and it's the same BS. So anyway, that's the reason why it's very important to watch his health, in my opinion, to see how this plays out. But we shall see. All right, next is, I've mentioned a few times, the BRIC union, or it's not just BRIC, but it's a very special union of India, China, and Russia, right? We've covered them quite a bit on the show. It turns out I'm becoming evil. My mother's getting worried about me because she gets concerned why I'm having my daughter learn Chinese. She keeps saying, but why are you doing that, Phranq? Isn't China our enemy? Why do you want our daughter, my granddaughter? I know. No. She really gets concerned. She just doesn't understand it. And now, of course, the two influences in our or three is China, because she's going to school for it, Japan, because that's my second culture, I like to say, and my wife is basically from India. She grew up in India. And so we have India and China influences in this house nonstop. My daughter loves watching Indian shows and Chinese shows and Japanese shows.
As an aside, how come Savarda doesn't have "thank you, come again" accent? She sounds American. There's no accent there.
Well, you know what? Because when she was in school, she went to a boarding school where they were also Americans sent there at the same time. So her teachers spoke with a Punjabi accent there, but she was surrounded by Americans. But anyway, but the thing is, it's interesting how India and China are the two influences in our family, and now they're unifying. Now, I'm going to tell a little bit to the audience, in case you're not watching or aware, a little bit of why this is important. My daughter comes home and she's talking about schoolyard politics. I guess Ernie, you already went through this with your kids and grandkids. This is new to me. You know, I pick up my daughter and she's telling me about so and so was mean to me in the schoolyard, and so and so is my new best friend, and I'm not trying to keep up with this. I'm like, oh my God, social dynamics, even at this age, it's no different than world leaders. Well, this is what's going on here. We have the let's start with India. India is friends with Russia. Okay, Russia has been friends with China. China, however, is also very good friends with Pakistan. But Pakistan and India don't like each other. And since Pakistan and India are almost always at war, or on the brink of war, India hates China. But China loves Russia, so that puts a strain in the India-China-Russia relationship. Now, just to make this a little further, Pakistan is hated by Israel because Pakistan has a bunch of Muslims there. Now, the United States has now put tariffs, of course, where we've had restrictions on Russia for a long time, and Russia just kind of laughs at us because Russia is completely self-contained. They're like the ultimate off-grid nation. They don't need anybody. God bless them. That's pretty cool. So that's the thorn in the side. America cannot control them, kind of like what Ernie wants to do. If you're self-reliant and you can have your own land and you have your own electricity and your own water, do everything on your own, what can they do to you, right? That's the whole, occupy the land mantra of Freedom's Phoenix. Well, Russia has done that on their own internationally. So the USA can't really do much to them. So they're trying to affect them. And meanwhile, the USA trying to get its dominance back, which it can't. The United States and Donald Trump himself remind me of the stereotypical old high school football star. I think there was a Superman 3, if you ever saw Superman 3, where Clark Kent goes back to Smallville and he ran into the football star, the guy that made fun of him when he was in high school. And of course now Clark Kent's really Superman, and the old football guy's got the beer belly and he's all washed up, and all he still clings to is his high school trophy. That to me is America, and in many ways it's also Trump himself, who is kind of that representation, still thinking that the cheerleaders who are now older are still find him attractive, and he's still the alpha in the school. But meanwhile, the geeks that he picked on are probably Bill Gates or somebody else with a lot more power and money. So that's kind of the situation, and he doesn't realize, and I think most people in the establishment honestly are self-deluded with their own power. They don't travel, really, outside of trying to bully other nations. They don't speak other languages. They really don't understand the rest of the world, which is why I keep talking about culture and the importance of Americans actually living abroad and traveling. That's the biggest problem Americans have. I see more and more as I get older. But anyway, so America has created such a problem that they now have forced India into the hands of Russia, because now we've put all the tariffs on the world to try to force and accelerate, in all fairness to Trump, because as I said, he only has 4 years to do what he should have been able to do in 8 years. So he's trying to entice these companies back. So he's putting tariffs on the world as a bold approach. I don't want to get into the debate with you or the audience, like, Phranq, what are you doing? This is tariffs, and it's not free markets, and blah, blah. I get that. But he's trying a way to just bludgeon it and use that's a big gamble. I give him credit for putting it all on the line and being this hard ass of something that is the art of the deal. It's a gamble. And you see how people are gonna react. And it's the biggest deal of his life, in my opinion, is doing this tariff deal. But meanwhile, he's putting tariffs on countries, and many of them have capitulated. England and many countries have, but some countries are not. And one of which was India. And India, America has spent over a decade, 15 years or longer, actually longer than that, to try to create a good relationship with India. India is very important. It's like the redheaded stepchild as far as the foreign administrators in America. India has always been this kind of, they got 1 billion people. They have a lot of gold. They're a powerhouse, and a powerhouse for the future. But America, like with Africa, never really took them seriously. But whoever gets India as a friend, as India is growing out of their post-imperialistic history into their own agency themselves is going to have a hell of a friend. And that's why I was happy that Trump and Modi were doing, we're becoming BFFs in a 1.0 administration. But in order for Trump to keep these tariffs with other countries, if India says, no, I'm sorry, we just can't afford these tariffs because, we're hurting here as well. So if you're going to put a tariff on us about oil, well, then we're going to have to go to Russia and get the oil from Russia, right? I mean, it makes sense. But Trump was forced to put a tariff on India because if they didn't put it on India, our friend, then it would look bad to the other countries that he's put tariffs on. Like, wait a minute, you're making us bend down to your tariffs. How come not India? So Trump, to his credit, or at least the way it's set up, he has to be, force it on India as well. And India's like, we don't have to take it. So they go off to Russia. And what Trump doesn't get to, this is my opinion, is that he's thinking, well, look, it should be goodwill. We're America. I mean, just look at us. I was the old football star, number one. Number two, India has a lot more in common with America culturally and the way their religion is set up than with China. They're communists. I mean, India does not want to even politically be like China. So they really don't want to go with China. But what Trump is missing, like Americans often do, is being overseas and hearing them themselves, not just how America frames how other countries are. And what I mean by that is what I was just hinting, is that India has gone through their own identity crisis. Remember the movie Gandhi? Was Gandhi himself protesting against, the imperialism of Britain, of England, right? And so it took years for that to end. And now they've spent decades trying to just figure out who they are on the world stage. And now they're starting to get their act together. They're starting to move forward. And then America comes and acts like, well, basically the imperialistic nation empire that we are. And we're not taking them over, but we're indirectly still trying to put them on a chain and say that, you work for us, or you're our minion. And like, whoa. So it's a little bit like African Americans, to be fair, after slavery, and then it took decades for them to become educated enough to be able to survive with their, quote, freedom at that point, not being indentured servitudes, but they were free, and then eventually find their own culture. And that's why, as much as I'm against all this, a lot of this affirmative action, and what was that, I forget them already, the group that was protesting Black Lives Matter and all that BS, I was the only white member of a black fraternity, as many of you know. So I'm, at least I remember, let's say, having deep conversations with my friends back then. And a lot of it is identity. A lot of it is finding their voice as a people, the way they feel about it. And that's why that community is so, sensitive. And part of me, I agree with their sensitivity. Other parts, it's been weaponized and politicized, George Soros dollars. That's the other part. So that's a whole other conversation. But I respect and understand where that sensitivity is coming from. And that's what India is going through. And so that's the type of thing Trump has no clue about. He's just like, hey, I'm throwing a tariff on, and what else are you going to do? And then he goes off to Russia and China, and I guess they felt so slighted by what he was doing and not understanding the history here that they're willing to chummy up with China, which they've never done before. They never did. And so to see the three of them together in the same room, or especially India and China, if you understand international politics, is massive. And they were laughing. There was a lot of mirth in the air in the videos you see. They were really laughing. They're really getting along, which should say a lot. And here's Trump with you're getting IVs and black and blue marks, and he's hiding from the press, and he's falling apart with his his own base and the whole Epstein thing, which I'll finish up with in a minute. But so anyway, I just wanted to bring up to the audience of how significant, when you get yourself outside of just the America bubble, which I try to bring to the show a little bit. This is a profound move, which of course makes me reinforce why my daughter is learning Mandarin, and we'll be taking a trip over there. So anyway, the last thing here, or the two quick things. I'll make these quicker, but the one is Epstein.
Liar.
Well, it's only quick for me, not for you, because I need to get going. But it's Epstein. So I'm going to keep hammering that, and this time it's an actual news of the week. So,
yeah, this is a whole bunch of the real stuff we want you to have. Pinky swear, and there's nothing else. Pinky swear.
Oh yeah, no, exactly. So what's really happening is the Congress comes back, and the administration, for whatever this scandal is worth it to them, why Trump is just taking the sword to protect others. I mean, I don't. Nobody's, by the way, to CNN, even CNN's credit and like-minded mainstream propaganda media, they're not even saying that Trump is part of this. Like they're at least not even trying to insinuate that, to their credit. Which I'm sure they're salivating to do that, but I think they're trying to be above board. They know that the minute they say that, it's going to just it will undermine the movement that they're trying to create, which ultimately is to undermine Trump. But if they make this about Trump, that he's in it, then the base will turn on them. But they're playing it smart. They're playing it smart because when someone like me has to watch CNN to get Epstein update news, I mean, that's pretty pathetic on all sides. But they're playing it right. But anyway, they were hoping that Congress, when it came back in session, people would forget about it after they adjourned early last time. So no, it didn't happen, and Thomas Massey was just waiting in the wings, licking his chops until it came back. And Ron O'Connor I'm sure he's got his name. Is it Roy O'Connor? Ro Khanna. His name is Representative Ro Khanna of California. The two of them have been unified across the aisles to put a bill that forces all of Congress, or at least the House, to vote on, yay or nay, should all the Epstein files, everything that they can release, be released once and for all. And if nothing else, to put it on record. Trump could still veto it, but we want to see the names of Congress. You say it for transparency. How could you be against, child trafficking and the Me Too and women's movement? I mean, there's so much that will be thrown on these representatives. They have so much to lose. So why not, right? It's forcing the issue, if nothing else, to see how corrupt this problem is, if they still won't. So anyway, we're trying to force the issue and make them say it. And the bill now needs 12 signers. It needs 12, I guess in this case 12 Republicans to sign on. All the Democrats have signed on to it, but they need enough Republicans to put it on the House floor. And however the numbers are, they need 12. So far, they have 10 names, 10, and Marjorie Taylor Greene has signed on to it, a few others. Now, I don't know why every Republican has not signed on to it. That should be pretty obvious, but they're not. So he needs 2 more names, just 2. And so Trump was surprised that even 10 would sign on. He's probably even more surprised that people are even paying attention to this thing, which is this bizarre that he's so out to lunch, and he's still calling it a Democrat hoax. So he needs 2 more names. And I would say for those of you that care enough to, or even think it's even worth, calling out to your representative, if it even matters, or however we pressure people, I think this would be an interesting time. But we'll see if he can get 2 more. And I'm really watching that fight. How is it? And there's a good chance he won't, because Trump will just, threaten to primary anyone who signs on it, which in itself undermines Trump more. To sit there and attack a Republican because he's claiming they are attacking him in order to put this bill on the floor to simply force all files to be released on a so-called crime that he claims is a scandal. So, all right, Trump, I'm sorry, it's a false scandal, right? It's all fake. So if it's fake, Trump, prove your point and have all the files released. I mean, it's a circular Mobius strip of non-logic that Trump cannot get out of this one. To call it fake, but then threaten representatives to not vote on just releasing material that everybody wants. This is going to take. I'm telling you, this is going to be taking him down in many ways. So that's going on. And meanwhile, a bunch of the survivors waited. And remember, I told you last time, I said, I'll bet you the people who have some more ammo are waiting for Congress to come back. And that's why we had that dead spell for the last month. Well, they're back. And now that this bill, they're trying to collect votes. Now you have a bunch of survivor women and some of their husbands. They stood in front of the Capitol and they gave a bunch of their points of view. And anyway, without going into it all, I was going to play a couple of the spots, but you can watch it online if you haven't heard it. They're very emotional and they're very brave women. I mean, when you know that there's a target on you, and not only your physical threat, but I would assume economic threat, because I don't know if any or if all of those women might be violating some sort of, non-disclosure. I mean, apparently, $1 billion or whatever was by which bank was that they paid off all of these women over the last couple of years just to help them out because we're compassionate. Well, yeah, I'm sure you're just helping them out, and they all had to sign non-disclosures. So then what happens if you violate that? So I don't know where these women stand with non-disclosure forms, but certainly for their physical well-being. And I think they've had enough. And thank God they're unifying together, safety in numbers, and they claimed, and you know what? I'm just going to play this one part. I'd rather you just hear it from her. It's an African-American lady, she's very passionate about it, and she said what I have been waiting for them to say, which is, if they won't release the names, we'll do it for them. We'll just release the names ourselves. And, maybe justice won't happen, but in many ways the justice, like for O.J. Simpson, was not about going to jail. It was the fact that he was a public leper at that point. So just a minute, I want you to hear what she says. This is her speaking in the front of the Capitol. Here we go.
I was taken to Jeffrey Epstein's island while on a photo shoot on a nearby island. Who I saw and what I experienced there was a glimpse into a very dark and disturbing world. For years after, I tried to avoid Jeffrey, but he had introduced me to Katie Ford, the owner of the Ford Modeling Agency. Epstein's reach went to the very top of fashion, arts, and entertainment. This did not just happen to underage girls in Florida. In New York City, hundreds of young, ambitious women were abused by him. Epstein was not just a serial predator, he was an international human trafficker. And many around him knew, many participated, and many profited. And yet he was protected. So I stand here today for every woman who has been silenced, exploited, and dismissed. We are not asking for pity. We are here demanding accountability, and I'm demanding justice. Congress must choose. Will you continue to protect predators, or will you finally protect survivors? And also, I would like to announce here today, us Epstein survivors have been discussing creating our own list.
Own list.
Names. Many of us were abused by them. Now, together as survivors, we will confidentially compile the names we all know who are regularly in the Epstein world. And it will be done by survivors and for survivors. No one else is involved. Stay tuned for more details.
So there we go. So we have that. And, this is off the tail of the Me Too movement. Now, a lot of that was BS, but my God, I mean, people stood by Trump over the whole Access Hollywood deal and the Me Too movement that was kind of, astroturfed as a response to Trump. They try to spin the whole Weinstein thing and all of that. But now Trump is literally just stepping into that too. So by not helping these women, my God, I mean, there's no reason not to. He's now going to take ownership of this travesty that happened to women, and there's only one woman in jail and only one person accountable, and she just got into Club Fed. And also, you have Cindy McCain. Cindy McCain was just interviewed the other day, by a bunch of compassionate liberals, and she's the token conservative, because she's not Trump world. And she was asked about Epstein, and she said, "Oh yeah, Epstein's a bad guy. Oh, we all knew about it." She's talk. And they're like, wow, we have Cindy McCain telling us about it, that she knew. Well, how did she know? Because her husband was the senator, and they all knew. He's a senior senator, ran for president, and they all knew and hid it. And yet, Cindy McCain is now suddenly brave for talking about, where the hell were you before? You're trying to run for president. Are you kidding me? So anyway, the whole thing is disgusting. And all I'd say for any conservative that that maybe this still doesn't, ring with the same immediacy that, at least for me, maybe I'm the only audience member or person that feels this way. I know I'm not alone. But just for shits and giggles, just go watch again Sound of Freedom. Yeah, just watch it. I mean, you watch that movie, and many times it's hard to even watch it again. It's a movie that's so amazing, but you just can't seem to watch it again. Just watch it again. Remember what it was like walking out of that theater and realize that this is part of the world that we're fighting for. And if we can't have this, the final boss, even exposed, nothing else matters. All right, there's my Occupy the Land mantra from Tamburri. And the very last, and I have to go, and I'm sure you can segue on this one, is gold. We have to talk about the economy, or what's left of it. Gold and silver, both all-time highs yesterday. I'm not sure what it is now. Wouldn't surprise me if it's still over those limits. Bitcoin, I'm not sure where Bitcoin is, but I'm not going to be bashing Bitcoin. But the one thing to keep in mind is that Bitcoin, when it seems to go up or down, it seems to be paralleling the NASDAQ and tech stocks. So
Bitcoin is now at 108,000. Gold is 35.48. Silver is 40.62.
Wow. So there we go. And the mining stocks, the gold GDX was a high, and the junior mining stocks are up. So you can get all detailed. And there was that video that I was telling you, I think, off the air that I sent my family. That was a very basic 101 level, talking about what sound money is. Audience, it's frustrating because with our family and friends, I'm sure you're in the same boat, where for decades, when those of us that knew about all this in advance, about the economy and sound money and the Federal Reserve and all of this, when you try to explain this to people back then, they're not interested and they don't care, because in their mind, you're saying there's a hurricane coming, and all they do is look straight up and there's clear skies. And they like, you're Chicken Little. Why should I waste my time reading about the economy falling apart when I don't hear it from any real people and the mainstream media? So why should I bother? I'm not going to waste my time, right? But then after the collapse happens, or like during the recession that we had, 10 years, 15 years ago, when that happens, then when you say, all right, now that you're getting hit with hurricane winds financially, now what about reading this book? Oh, I don't have time for a book. I'm in panic mode. I need to work 3 jobs. I have to sell off my stuff. Here's just a bunch of money. Buy some of that gold for me. I don't know. Just buy stuff. So now you have people that go from, first, they don't want to learn about it because it doesn't seem like a threat. And then when it's finally in their face, they don't have time to read about it. They're in panic mode, and then they make bad decisions like giving more control to the government because they just, they're the chicken with their head cut off. But there's this sweet spot, which is unfortunate that human beings are this, dim-witted and such, but it's human nature, sort of like someone who smokes. You can tell them all day, and they have to wind up in the hospital in the ER and being told they have lung cancer before they finally stop smoking. I mean, it's just one of those things. But you have to get them in that right sweet spot. And where I believe, and I'm wondering if the audience feels this too, I feel like we're at that point now where it's not like it's clear skies, but the hurricane hasn't hit them yet. But they can feel the change in the air pressure. You can smell the rains coming. It's to the point where, okay, I can see why this guy, my neighbor named Noah, is like building this crazy boat of his. And you start to see it, and they're starting to have interest. So for those of you who've given up on their friends and family, which I pretty much have myself, I would just say, if there's someone that might be a bit interested, but the timing was never right for them, this seems to be the time where they're very open to it. And some of these mining stock YouTube channels or Austrian economics channels, I'm sure many of you have your own, but I'm sure you've been noticing their ratings have been spiking, and a lot of the people, the new viewers, are new to this entire world. Or there are people who got into Bitcoin just because it was the thing to do. But Bitcoin forces you to start to learn about the economy. And now that they're learning how money really works, yes, they like Bitcoin and altcoins for some of them, but now they're starting to understand what the tangential move to gold and silver is. The other thing with gold and silver is that the price of gold is spiking up, of course, but it's not because of retail investors. It turns out when you're calling around at gold and silver shops, they're not finding people buying gold and silver. Most of the people are selling it to them. Yep. The retail is selling. So this means that the average American still doesn't understand what this is going to happen. So when you see gold go up, normally you'd think that all your neighbors are piling in.
No, it's institutional.
No. So this right, exactly. So that's the point. Is that if the gold store, the retail investors are not there, or they're selling at this point, then how is the gold price spiking if the average American is selling it?
Because they're buying up everything that is available, and people to live are dipping into their resources to be able to pay for G.I. Joe the Kung Fu grip for their kid for Christmas.
Right, exactly. So they think it's an all-time high. So that means either they don't understand that this is not, it's the high right now, but it's just getting started. So they don't understand the fundamentals. They think it's a good time to sell. I got a chart. It's also to retail investors that just don't even understand it's a value yet. So who's buying all the gold? Like, just to put a punctuation mark, it's the central banks. It's the smart money, which means that if the smart money is only in it now, the smart money always leads. The smart money leads before the retail investors. So that means if it's already spiked now, before it's even gotten to the next level of buying, I'm not giving investment advice, but man, this is an interesting time. So
when a crypto gets linked to some kind of precious metal instead of the dollar, stable coins to the dollar. Who gives a shit about that? That's just going to inflate the crypto as much. That's just stupid. When you have a stable coin linked to what the real dollar was, which is 0.77 ounces of silver, is the definition of a dollar. A silver dollar is a way. Hello, people, they're so stupid. So and they're made that way. And you could explain it to them all day. What I got up, Pan American Silver Corporation is one of those mining stocks that, I can't even remember why. I picked that years ago, decades ago. It's a Western Hemisphere kind of, they're buying where their silver. And all of a sudden, a year ago, you go in to here, I take it and I go, all right, what was it a year ago? It was $12.41 or something at some low. When was this? It was 24, January of 24. So a year and a half ago, a little bit more, it was low. It was, oh my God, and it just keeps going up. It's had a high of over $40. So here we go. Everybody waits for the mining, because mining, you got to at least afford the diesel, to get it, or it's not worth getting. So this is it's so here we freaking go. And I've been jumping up and down. Now keep in mind, back when it was 2001, it was $3.52. $3.52 an ounce back when we were screaming. Let's go to like February of 03. Here we go. Like March of 03, it was $5.81. I remember it was about $6. I was screaming for people, sell everything, get silver. Why? When is the government going to stop printing money? Never. There's your answer. So what does that mean? Get precious metals. And I was for silver because I thought the percentage of increase, because it was so out of whack with gold, was going to be a lot better. But a lot of wealthy people, they get it. Now they got a big giant stack of silver. So, how the hell, where do I store that? Gold was a little bit easier to store. And then, do you even want it? And like crypto, you put a gun to your head, give me your, private key, and we're going to take of whatever the hell, how you store this. Well, for me, it's like I'm not worth, that much to come risk a bullet anyway. But the point is that silver, 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 silver dime cards, silver bullion, silver 10-ounce bars, silver big giant bricks, silver melt down into a car, stop in your garage and paint it orange. I mean, silver, whatever, because here we freaking go. Maybe copper, maybe gold, maybe palladium, maybe platinum, maybe. But when you have something that will be used, it's, dime a dozen. Well, silver dimes, you get a dozen eggs. So when you start to realize this, and it's something fundamental and basic, and the very definition of what a dollar is in the United States of America, constitutional, it is, our kind of money, and then you have the Silver Coin Act of 17, whatever the hell, and it defines it. Well, shit, I vote that. But not they, them, those. Oh. Why? I'm just going to get to go neon, I freaking told you so, with absolutely no pleasure whatsoever. People,
I feel the same way, and I got to tell you, with the silver, though, and gold, what's really going to kill everybody, at least in a certain sense, is that they don't understand the fundamentals. If you understand the fundamentals, then you don't see where gold and silver is now as the cap and it's the high like a stock, and it's just going to collapse.
Or which crypto is going to take off.
Yeah, because they look at us as we're just like religious people, and it's on faith. It's not faith, it's math and history, and you just see this happens with every economy. I mean,
it's what Facebook said.
Yeah.
Now,
anyway,
what Facebook said. No, before you go, two things. One, I get to do, I got to have some, Trump report Phranq here. One, the new seasons of South Park have been put on, I don't know, something Paramount or whatever. Oh. And I go, this season, 27th season, oh my freaking God, okay? My kids were little when...
I watched the first episode live way back in the day. I didn't even know what I was in store for. I'm just saying.
This is what happens. This year, it's all Trump. Trump's always getting in the White House. He comes into the bedroom, drops trowel, naked, tiny penis they keep making fun of. He gets in bed with Satan. And hey, J.D. Vance comes in with a jar of baby oil and is like, do you want me to lube up Satan's anus for you, boss? He act like, the plane, Fantasy Island.
Oh, yeah, tattoo.
At Mar-a-Lago.
His tattoo.
And then, what's her name? Christy Nome is, Homeland Security of whatever, and she's always being dolled up and pimped. And Mr. Mackey's going to be an ICE agent because he lost his job, the PC principal. That's now, Jesus is in the school, and woke is dead. Now they got like a Charlie Kirk character, Cartman's making fun of college. Well, I mean, holy crap! There is nothing off limits. I'm going, damn. They have Trey Parker, Matt Stone. I don't really see that they're, targeting Trump as much as just the whole freaking thing is. It doesn't matter. Biden, Trump, they don't give a crap. They just make fun of the whole damn thing. And they are swinging for the fences. Are you kidding me? Trump cannot mention South Park. This cannot even come up. It's like the worldwide privacy tour of Meghan and Prince, what's his name? I mean, you get in the crosshairs of South Park, and you're done, okay? To an entire new generation of, just saying. So that was of interest. No,
I'll check that out.
One thing. You got to give me the bottom line, how many episodes you've watched of Firefly, Serenity. Give me your evaluation of that and why I told you have to watch it. What say you?
Well, I skipped the end version in a sense, is that Savarda loves it. She wasn't sure she was going to watch it, she would like it. I wasn't sure when the show came out if I would like it, because this is way back in the day, and you may not realize this, but it came out in the late 90s, and there was a saturation of all of these new CGI, because CGI had just come out where you could make spaceships cheap. So everyone wanted to make a knockoff of like a Battlestar Galactica show. And there was anyway, there was Star Trek, Voyager and all that. But then there was the other one. It's escaping me that Chris Phranq did the music to. Deep.
matter.
Yeah, well, it does. It's the flip side of Deep Space Nine. Anyway, so all these shows were coming out and it became saturated, and a lot of them are crap. And Firefly came out at the tail end. Joss Whedon had just finished up with, with Buffy and Angel, or at least they were still in production and they were winding down. So he was trying to find a whole different area besides angels and demons and vampires. So yeah, so he goes to Firefly, and it's a shame because sometimes the best comes last, and so people were just bored and saturated with that format, and yet Joss Whedon
the Fox executives bitched it up and get him out of order and everything.
But look, you guys, I'm just telling you, the special effects are not bad. They make it on the cheap because they try to film it as if it's a Western. So that's where they save money. So they put some good effects in when needed, but most of it is just like a Western.
Blah, blah, blah. The storyline. What do you think
well, I'm trying to get to just that it's very smartly written, and the characters are astounding. In the first episode alone, I mean, my better half loved every character, and that's hard to do. Every character has moments, and you can walk out of that show and the character. I know Ernie's like, skip to the end, come on. But this, to me, is what I'm taking from the show, is how deep the writing is, and we're only two episodes in. It's only 2. But when you see, you could watch 10 episodes of a modern show, and every character is a carbon copy of the other. They're vanilla. There's no traits to them. This, out of the gate, was astounding writing. So
Lots
with all
of
that, with all that said, and I'll talk more next week. We'll probably finish it in a few weeks. But it is.
Few days.
It's like Ernie's wet dream is what this is about, and it's the principles. There's I don't know how to summarize it quickly now.
Bad.
Yeah, but it's interesting. It's like it takes place, for those you don't know, after a future civil war, where essentially you have just like the Civil War. You have the states that were all unified. I'm sorry, they were all separate states. Kind of like the colonies became states, and each state had its own personality. Then we had the Constitution. We created a country, but the states were still, they trumped the national government up until, of course, the Civil War. And that the Civil War is when our country went from a bottom-up approach to a top-down. And that's when the federal government in our country became the feds, is after the Civil War. And that's what happens in this fictitious future, which is probably not going to be fictitious, which is that humanity is seeded in other planets, like other colonies, and they each create their own personalities, their own cultures, but they couldn't just be left alone. They had to be unified under the alliance, and it's like the federal government.
Yes, it is.
So the other people who wanted to be left alone in their own colonies, their own planets, like, hey, look, I've got my own planet. I mean, how far do I have to be left alone? It sounds like someone I know. And so now they have their own planet. And they're saying, no, you still can't be left alone. You got to be part of our alliance. Like, why? Why do I have to be part of, I'm on another planet. I'm not even affecting you. And yet, that's what the fight was over. And the people who fought for their independence were probably the strongest fighters, the most principled fighters. But the alliance were not as principled, and they were not as skilled, but they had the numbers. And of course, pulling together all of their finances and the technology to overwhelm them. So the rebels lost, the troublemakers lost, although depending what you call lost, but they basically, they just scattered to the wind and realized, at least for the near future, fine, they won, but I'm not going to give up my principles. I'm not going to succumb to it. And if I have to, I will go down with the ship with this, but I'm going to live my freedom. And I forget the line. There was a fantastic line.
Burn the land and boil the sea. You can't take the sky from me.
That's right. That girl, that mutant girl, which I know there's more to it in the future, but she keeps talking about that. So obviously that's going to play in. But it's interesting how there was a line in the second episode towards the end where it was basically, I was going to record it and just play it. I know you'd love it. You should play it on your show each time. But it's talking about how that at the end of the day, I may not have a home, but as long as I have my freedom, I will roam, something like to that degree. and the cast of characters. It's kind of reminds me of Ernie in Freedom's Phoenix, of finding the intelligent but quirky, I'd say outcasts in a respectful sense.
I got my pirate
the people
ship
that have
to Precariat.
principles, and you have people with different skill sets. And one guy is a pastor, and you know what? We could use a pastor to give some moral and spiritual support. This other person's a doctor, and we could use a doctor as part of the team. And everyone has everyone's an ad, but they all have their reasons to, whether it's on principle, whether it's...
And the ambassador, which is a sex worker.
Oh, yeah, she is definitely beautiful. She was well cast and well acted. That could have been a one-note character, and that actress is fantastic. And by the way, I got to go, but Savarda gave me the scuttlebutt because, when it comes to Hollywood news that Ernie loves about. So that woman who plays the sex worker, who is just gorgeous and classy. She's almost like an Audrey Hepburn type.
Yeah, she was Deadpool's girlfriend.
She was who?
Deadpool.
Oh yeah. Well, that's what Savarda was saying. So he played Deadpool's girlfriend in movie number 1. She was not asked back for movie number 2 because the plot didn't need her. But movie number 3, she came back to play the wife. So she was in the Deadpool and Wolverine, right? So she was in it. They filmed a bunch of scenes. She was part of the plot. Well, as it was being filmed, or right after it was filmed, that's when the Blake Lively scandal happened, with also involves Ryan Reynolds, and it blew up in their face, and everyone hates Blake Lively at this point. Well, that woman plays a sex worker. She basically called out Blake Lively and couldn't believe what she did. Ryan Reynolds was so angry about it that he went back to the editing board because he has final cut, and he cut her out of almost the entire movie. So if you see Wolverine Deadpool, she has like one scene in it, never to be heard from again out of
Marina
spite.
Baccarin.
Yeah. So she, anyway, that's a little scuttlebutt that Savard told me I should tell you. Anyway, I got to go. It was a great show. Say hi to Donna for me, and I'm going to do my maneuvers that you know about, and I got to get to it because times are changing. All right, buddy.
Get silver. Get silver and other stuff. Whatever.
Yep.
All right,
See you
peace,
later.
brother.
Bye.
Oh, well, what do we got to worry about? I don't know. Not that much. This is there's so many little things. What we're going to be doing is we're going to. This was kind of the plan from the beginning. Is when we can relaunch the show. We can go ahead and get platformed on the whatever. We had it sitting there. I'm not doing. This is what happened. When it first started, we created Freedom's Phoenix to be its own thing, that we could have all our material and everything there. It would never go away. We had our own servers. Well, then those could come under attack. So then we do the interplanetary file sharing, IPFS, so that we could have dissemination of this stuff. And you can do RSS feeds from what we got, put it on your own phone, go. And in the background, we had iTunes, and I don't even pay attention. A lot of people listen to the show on iTunes. Well, whatever. It was automated, and they made it simple and RSS feeded. I don't care. So then there was a lot of other RSS feeds that were Google and Android, and they stopped supported that because people were curating their own list, their own stuff. So they stopped supporting RSS apps to do it. When we had our own at the top of Freedom's Phoenix, this is phone apps or something like that. Well, that's not live anymore because the Google Play Store is going, oh man, you're not doing it right. It has to, phone home and be accessible if we get the back door of whatever. And I'm like, nah, we're done. Because we had upgraded one time for some whatever they were doing back when Android on the phones became a thing back in like 09, 10, around in there. And they were like, you too can create your own app. People did. Hundreds of thousands of them. It was just, we had our silver calculator app, for being able to trade silver based on the price at festivals of doing, in US dollar, kind of what made it simple. And we, had our own app for the show and so on. And, we had a lot of fans that were helping and doing all that. And nope. Tyranny, there's an app for that. That's on Google Play. And, oh, your Freedom app? Nope, it's got to comply with the evil app of Dance with the Devil. I'm going, nah, we're good. That's it. We're done. We'll wait. Wait for what? To where we don't have to do this anymore. When there's something else. So we start developing an IPFS thing, having this ability to yada, yada, yada. Well, what happens? It goes underground. It's all 4chan up. You know, when you look at an iceberg and you see the tip, you know, there's an enormous amount of iceberg underneath. It's like floating cube of ice in your glass. There's a vast majority of the internet traffic is below the waterline. Vast majority. World Wide Web is just a itty little bit, you know, top of whatever. There's a whole bunch of other going on down there, and they don't want you to know about it. So I'm going, this technology is going to get to the point that the reason I was being as quiet as I was while, you know, Phranq talked, been communicating with some guys in the crypto, you know, we're planning a lot of this stuff, and I get to do work while Phranq's going on. I'm listening, but, you know, not ready to just interrupt all the time. But I'm, you know, doing, you know, stuff that we're working on. So I'm going, okay, it's time. The technology has changed to the point that the World Wide Web is feeling the threat of being irrelevant. It's exactly the same. If you're old enough, you have gone through this. What did you go through? This. You can't believe any of that stuff. It's on the internet. That's bad internet stuff, lies on the internet, and troll internet, of no credibility internet. You need to pay. And if it's on the internet, it needs to be MSNBC, CNN, Fox News said. Internet. Feed. Sean Hannity. What did he say about it? What did Bill O'Reilly say about it? If it wasn't them saying about it, it's to be discarded as propaganda. If it doesn't matter, that's internet stuff, doesn't matter. Well, we activists knew totally differently. We're going, you want to know what the hell really going on? It's the guy standing there. It's the libertarian that you've known for 20 years that happens to live down the street from the whatever, went to the meeting, the city council kind of has a vested interest in a lawsuit against a man for whatever. That's where you know what the hell's going on. And as activists, that's what we did. We'd emphasize a lot of these different things. That's why you get alternative. But we put up, I mean, you go look on it and you'll see, you know, Zero Hedge is probably, you know, I wouldn't call it mainstream, but it's not alternative as much anymore. Not that I think they do a great job of highlighting a lot of stuff, but we do a lot of, you know, Brighteon's got stuff to say. We got, you know, all these different alternatives, but we'll put in some CNBC. President Trump holds a bilateral meeting with Polish President Karol Nawrocki. You know, Nawrocki or whatever. I'm like, you know, what? Okay, that might be interesting to do. CNBC? Well, I'm not going to put up any crap that they put up. I put it up. Yeah, you can figure it out. You know, then you'll find out you got General, what's his name, retired so-and-so CIA or something will come out later and say how much crap they're full of. It's who do you believe? But what do they generate? The headline, the narrative, what is being discussed, what they think is important, what their view of it is. That's good information too. Then you find out what's really going on. And you ask Trump baby. And these videos, these shorts of, you know, Trump, Kim Jong-un, Xi, and Putin and all that, and Zelensky, and have all these, their voice and their stuff coming out of whatever, some press conference, and it's like, you know, 18-month-old babies, you know, saying it's just pretty funny. You know, it makes it at least interesting. So this is where we're going back into the fray just to see. This will be like the third time over, 12, 15 years. When we go back, how many weeks before they kill the live stream on whatever these platforms are? How many weeks before you get, days, hours, before you get a strike? How many weeks before the threat of whatever? Now, we've downloaded everything, put it on the IP, so, and we have backups or whatever, so I'm not losing anything. We have our own servers. You can, you know, surf in our own kind of archive, whatever. One of the things, Content Safe, they're going, well, we need to post your stuff on archive.org, whatever it is. And I'm going, yeah, whatever, don't care. We got our own archive because we knew better from the beginning. Dissent is definitely not promoted. Oh, you got the freedom of speech, but not a reach. Yeah, we put it on the platform, you just can't get to it from here. You know, this is kind of their argument over at X. So well, if only one, I'm willing to wait until we can actually express ourselves and then see what kind of, it just started posting like this last weekend, and it has, you know, greatly improved our traffic already. That's how they get you. It's a metric. Is it real? Is it bots, trolls, AI, people? And what kind of people? We have cultivated a audience that I kept stripping our database of, you know, they got a .gov, .mil email, boy, I don't care. You know, the hell they want me to see it. You know, I don't care. So we put it up, but there's a lot of just bad addresses that then when they get the email dispatch that they signed up for, they would report it and claim it as spam just to get it downplayed. I go, okay, I see how this goes. I see what's going on. Those that are, you know, not participating, those that got, you know, certain email addresses, those that, you know, come from certain countries, and it's a big batch of whatever. I don't need the metro. I don't need the number. I don't care. Boom, gone. Stripped, deleted, gone away. We've had over, in our database, God, up to probably 200,000. The first culling, we went down to 80,000 from that. Just wait, get rid of all these, but they went and warned people, put it in the email dispatch. Look, if you're legit and you want to really, you know, resubscribe, come in, do it, but all this based on this criteria, we're strip mining this into the trash can. Because you get infiltrated. And you have comments of trying to, you know, do a false flag. We got to do some violence. We got to come together in the militia and go kick some ass. You know, don't do that. We're not advocating violence. Yeah, well, I need to, get my FBI paycheck. You know what? All right, I'm warning you. Yeah, deleted. And anything to do with that account, I push a button. Any and everything that they ever did on anything on our site is stripped. We made sure we put in that. Once I push that button, I can't reconstitute it. It's done. So I warn them. I told you, well, yeah, do what you got to do, but and you're gone. This is the attitude, not add on, get more, need kind of the metric of, I got so many, nope. For when we do things like this and repopulate the platforms and go, and it's in their comment sections, and people start to interface with, and even on the telegrams, I bring all these good, I know them 600 whatever people go on to some telegram channel, and I go, I need you to defend against all these guys that will infiltrate. I need you to maintain the flavor of this so it doesn't get slid. It's called sliding. They come in and they slide the top. They slide the focus. They slide over into wherever the hell it is that those want. Then you get the spam. Then it's all the crypto of I'll make you quick money, love you a long time, and look at my picture of my Asian super babe with, butt cheek, a cleavage of kind of love you a long time. Delete, ban, report, delete. I mean, it takes a lot of work. But I need help with that. I have the audience. People that try to slide the conversation over to kind of, therefore we should rob a bank. We should bomb a one. I mean, all that, nope, done. And because it's been decades of us doing this, thousands and thousands and thousands of hours of interviewees, do you think they know what I'm going to say and or do or emphasize? The MP3s are put into text form. AI goes through it. They already know. They know. So how am I approached? Who comes after you? They just kind of stop after a while. But do they really? I mean, But they want you to be influenced by platform metrics. What do you get reward? Woohoo! I've seen it happen. Man, it was #1, did something about Oprah Winfrey's show of don't order water and ask for a lemon slice because of the bacteria of, oh my God, you're going to die in the restaurant because you ordered water and had a lemon slice for the filthy hand of the waiter or waitress that did whatever. Britney Spears' new belly button ring. Woo, man, we got, any of that kind of trivial Taylor Swift getting married of, my daughter, my youngest daughter used to produce for me for a couple of years. She does a daily video. She's a real estate agent. And just to keep relevant, every day she does some funny video. God, she's really creative. She's funny as hell. So she puts stuff up. And this one thing she goes, all right, what's the biggest news today? Is it Taylor Swift and Travis going to get married, or Starbucks brought back pumpkin spice? Woohoo! So I'm going, yeah, it's that. Don't care about that. I'm more interested, and I got my flavor of something. So this is, it's so obvious what's rewarded and what's punished. Dissent of anything, of they, them, those. And seeing what Big Pharma is doing right now, where they think they got, because who's chief of staff? What's her name that for Trump, and she's got ties Big Pharma, whatever. All these guys, I mean, it's just, how are you going to make it? You got to have your own criteria, your own focus, your own what's important to you. And having delegated your authority to anybody else that's got a shiny badge and an always available gun to make whatever is important to them has to be important to you, and you got to do it right. That is really, I vote not. How about I take care of myself and my children? They're mine, right? They're not yours. Oh, they are. Oh, it takes a village to indoctrinate my kid. I mean, this stuff is going away. Why? Because of communication. Because people get to talk. Because they bypass the control mechanism. People go, well, it must be true. I saw it on TV. And it went straight from that. It must be true. I saw it on Facebook. Wow. Are you kidding me? So this is going to be a test. About a week from now, because we were busy getting things set up, we're going to go ahead and start crafting the landing pages on all these things for the show, for Freeman's Phoenix. We already kind of got Occupy, but that's not political. We kind of, still Ernie. I mean, there's definite. The first one, boom, you get a challenge. I go, God, man, am I on a list? Yes. Mr. Levolutionary? Well, you think there's not a list? Well, I'm on it. Whatever it is. Did they change the algorithm enough to kind of drop that off? We're going to find out. So within a week or two, we're going to go ahead and do kind of not a big, giant, hard launch, just kind of boom, here we are, do this, maybe some promotion, maybe some banner ads that we put online, just kind of see what's up and see how many seconds, minutes, hours, days, weeks, months, years that it goes unmolested. They, them, those will not disappoint when they feel that they're under threat from and what would be the philosophy that I espouse is different than now the entire freaking alt media has just gone warp speed with plaid past me. Boom, we're attacking. I'm going, good. One less thing I got to do. Holy crap, yay. There's 15 gazillion Alex Jones out there. Yay. Except, Owen Shorter resigns from InfoWars because Alex kept dropping in, bugging his show. So, whatever. But, these guys are out there. So I'm just going, thank God. We were trying to, make it possible for that, holding down the fort early on in the day. Freeman's Phoenix, the love of Luke County. There wasn't a whole bunch of that. We were in opposition too. And our traffic showed it. Just jump. We're probably 10, 15% of what our peak traffic was. And it was to the moon. And I'm just going, nope, I could see what was happening. Google buys YouTube, and you're not allowed, and we got YouTube Nazis, literally. And you're not allowed. You can't deplatform. So we pulled. I just didn't want them to just cancel. I go, no, I'll wait. I'm an old guy. I know how time and pressure. Well, that time has come now to at least test it again for the demonstration of what's coming next. This is why, like we just had on Carter on the Psi protocol, which is a new crypto with default privacy of high tech, whatever. Even the Aaron Day on Xano is checking it out. Some other guys are looking for it because they're getting ready to launch. I keep looking for this. It was MadeSafe, it's Quartal, it's Bastion, it's Psi, it's Xano. It's all these that have the traits of providing storage and dissemination without anybody being able to stop it of ones and zeros. That's it. How hard is it? I make ones and zeros. I put them over here. I want to have them available to anybody, and everybody wants to go and get them. We're done. Well, it's kind of hard. What about search? And I just don't care. You can or you can't. Can you index that and then make it so? No, until they figured it out, and they did. You know, all these times I'm going, you know, can I imagine it? Can little old Ernie Hancock imagine something that I want? Well, then they can do it. That's impossible. Why is it impossible? Well, you'd have to, okay, so do that. But it takes us, so do that. The desire for privacy and commerce and making money and being free, being left alone is a universal, popular, you can't stop it thing. Sooner or later, it becomes cheaper, faster, easier to do that which we want. In a free market, you have those desires met. And sooner or later, it's some 13, 23, 33-year-old hacker kid that comes up with, and it's done. And the side thing was a black hacker. You know, black hat, whatever that means, bad guy. And he goes, yep, but I could see, you know, being a, black hat, hell, if I just give the people the privacy they want to get, I'd make a crap load more money doing that. I'm like, okay, so do that. You did it? All right, let's talk about it. And if not that one, another one, or another one, or another one, or another one, or another one. This is so freaking obvious if you look at history of humanity. Humanity will not be denied that which they want. So what do those got to do? Influence what you want. Oh, you don't want that. You want to be bisexual, gay, and have, 3 of the 70 pronouns of kind of in the club of whatever the hell and take this here drug. That's what you want. So say Facebook. so I'm just, that's the battle. You got to get down to what is it that you want? You want to feel satisfaction, fulfillment, an addition. People smile when you show up. You're in the room. We're social creatures. You want to be of use. You want to be able to provide. You want to be able to share your life with friends and family and a spouse and raise kids. You want, because that's how our system is motivated. By hormones, enzymes, to keep on keeping on. Intelligent design, God, evolution, whatever, life finds a way. And the way to continuing life is to be able to support living, to support life, that which is pro-life, pro-living, keep on keeping on. And then what is evil? That which is opposite to that. You're not a woman until you had an abortion. You haven't grown up until you at least experimented with a gay behavior or did and whatever, and that sheep is kind of attractive. You're not done until you've actually done every freaking drug that is available. This is wow, really? How hard is this? Which is why you start seeing in the midst of all of this influence and crap, a great resurgence in church attendance by young men and women, especially young men, which have been under attack. Wait a minute. Over here, there's a philosophy of men have responsibilities, and with those responsibilities, they got the authority to structure their life in such a way that they can support a family, and that there's women there that want that, the most capable men, the most manly men, willing to work so that I can be a homemaker and raise children, because at a fundamental level, I have as a woman the empathy, the wiring, the endocrine systems. I see a baby and bond with it, has you at a fundamental level to perpetuate the species. Who's going to help me with that? And to think that that's not coming as an option, that's not in the free market of ideas, that's not supported. You know, what kind of stupid are you? This is how humanity has survived since forever. What is going on here? The goal is to replace you. You're either for them or against them. You're either going to support whatever the hell it is that they want, or you're not. And just like we saw here in America, and our neighbor to the south, a lot of Latin American countries, and certainly Mexico, that if you get real popular support and you run for office, I'm going, and you're dead. Constantly, my entire adult life, hell, my entire life, you have some rising up and all in opposition, and you're dead. And now to find that you get 6, 7, 8, a dozen of these political party, anti-immigration, we got to have some control, whatever, in Germany, and they're dead. Why? Because that's the way they roll. Think you're going to vote yourself free, do you? You think that's the foundation base? That's a side effect. That's downstream. That's a side effect of people actually, getting learnified. Nope. We're not going to do that. This about that. We're going to be freedom oriented kind of freedom's the answer. What's the question kind of people. So this is why I'm just like, you got to bypass all this crap. We're going to space. Government's not invited. Well, probably I'm not going. I'd rather I like Earth, to be honest. But the idea that 62 miles away, 100 kilometers up, governments have no jurisdiction until they say they do. They'll go, yeah, but this here ion cannon in the state of war, you're not allowed, and the ship, and you deliberately tried to escape, and you're dead. I mean, will it come to that? Hell yeah! If it serves them, they don't want you to even be an inspiration. What kind of government are they going to have on Mars? I don't know. Whoever owns the company Perrier. So this is why the Serenity movie and Firefly, the series with Nathan Fallon and them, it was such a refreshing view of just the relationship between the collective and individuals that had the means to just go. Burn the land, boil the sea. You can't take the sky from me. I'm gone. I'm out of here. What are you going to do about it? Here comes the Alliance, space station that we're going to whip your ass because you didn't kiss the ring. I'm like, wow. That series and the movie they used to wrap it up at the end, years later, the fans just went stupid. Are you freaking kidding me? You can't? What the hell kind of people are? Finally, they made a Universal Studios movie out of it, kind of tied up everything. It was cool. But that was the fans that did that. This is the time that we're in. And I have been leaning towards just occupy, stop, it doesn't matter. Well, I've been given another dose of optimism, even though I could see the future is going to be abundance and how much crap we had to go through. We're going to go through it. That's a given. We're going to go through it. But due to great minds and great efforts, there has been an infrastructure left in place that can at least explain it to Generation Next with enormous amounts of material available for them to get up to speed very quickly, which is why I'm so supportive of open source education.online, which is James Corbett curated selection of documentary videos that we are pimping. Because You watch, I don't know, you invest 10 hours of whatever into a lot of these things, what do you get? An understanding of what's happening and what your role can and should be, and how little is being asked of you to just be worthy of being left alone. All you have to do is not advocate for initiation of force on your fellow human to get what you think is better for them, or sure as hell what you want. That paradigm shift, that change in general public opinion changes everything, everywhere. It always has. It always will. The free market of ideas will always rise up because it's freedom's phoenix, the rebirth from the ashes of Lady Liberty's torch. And we're getting ready to go through the ashes. Is it a silver lining to the cloud? Are we looking forward to going through this? Probably not. But you should be prepping for it. You should be ready to take advantage of the opportunities that come after the crash. There's going to be a crash. This system is going to crash. It may not crash for they, them, those. They got, and everybody, 401ks in the stock, or you got, and it's gone. It's ours now, thanks for playing. That's coming. Just saying. Just saying. And the incentives and disincentives for you to get out and put in precious metals, buy silver or whatever. That's, a lot of people that know better are doing it now. They should have done it. When silver was under $20, hey, it's under $20 again, get more. It's under 20, get more. That's more. Well, it's still under 30, you need to get more. It's still under 40, you need to get more. Now it's over 40, now what? Will it take a crash? I'm sure they manipulate whatever they do. I don't think so. They've been counting on crypto sucking up a lot of liquidity, and I don't think it is. I'm sure it's going to go to whatever they're going to go, but it's just like with silver. It's not the people buying it. It's institutions. It's pensions. It's hedge funds. Central banks. Sovereign funds from countries are buying this stuff up. When silver becomes money again, it will freaking explode. All the silver and gold mined since the beginning of time of human history is not enough to give everybody an ounce or something. I mean, it's not that much. I mean, I'm not hauling it in the back of my car, but I mean, when it becomes money again, man, them gold backs are going to be worth something. So, when will I be proven right? Ernie, you've been saying that for a decade. Yeah. How many times I got to be right? Which has happened cyclically, quite a bit. I mean, silver is 2011, it went over $40 or something. Like, Neon, I told you so, dime cards. And we were fortunate we got to buy right before it shot up. We bought $20,000 worth of silver dimes at 79 cents under spot because they weren't popular. They were called junk silver. And we did a bunch of dime cards. And then we put those into circulation, sold them, whatever, just as an example. How much education do you think that got? We were at Ron Paul's birthday party. We had some of them on the table, and everybody wanted them. And I'm going, well, it's here just to show you. I mean, you give me $1 gazillion or tell me how cool you are and what you did me. Maybe I'll just give one to you. But I mean, damn. So this is where we're at. I just want to make sure you guys understand. We're predicting it's going to get bad. And I'm just so happy. Donna and I are glad that even though we're, not anywhere near having the infrastructure that we need for our 4 children and their families and so on, we got enough. We can not die out here. We can keep adding to whatever. They'll never want to come out. Are you kidding me? They live in refrigerators. They're going, God, how hot is that? Well, we survived. We got the little window shaker in the bedroom and the bud kind of, it's not that bad. And then we're outside and the evaporative of kind of, it's only 90-something degrees with 30% humidity as we're sitting here with a fan blowing on us, not sweating too much, doing the show. Oh, my God. Won't you guys come and stay with us? We'll come visit and go. And next week we got football games and soccer and whatever and see kids and stay over. It's all good. While I'm getting sick, sitting in their house at 68 degrees, freezing my ass off. You know, it's like you go into the movie theater in the summer in Arizona, you got to take a blanket. Damn. They're getting pretty spoiled. But, you know, that's just the way it is. So, you know, it's all good. We have, for our own peace of mind, created a place that we can just ride this thing out. Ride what out? I don't know. Whatever. Store, preserve, grow more food, source your water, you know, create infrastructure, power, have shelter, regulate your temperature, have a pool to jump in when you hit 100 billion degrees and, oh my God, so you don't die. I used to make fun of my friends that live more rural because they always had a weather station thing, a readout in there, and they're always checking, you know, the satellite, the weather channel, kind of weather all the time. I'm like, because we're built inside. God, it rained last night? Yeah, man, look at all the, got their hail on that. I didn't even know the guy, you know, you're not in touch with nature at all anymore. You go camping, you go to festivals, you know, in the summer, you go skiing or whatever, winter sports, a toboggan, grandkid, whatever in the winter. You get a little bit of a little bit, or you live out there. And we're going to start including more of our daily life and what we wake up to, you know, the sunsets to go on, because we can't even do time lapse, even shaded, of all the cameras, phones, whatever we're using. It's so freaking hot, they shut down after 15 minutes. So now we can start doing that as the temperature starts to go down. That's why we haven't been doing it, because the equipment can't survive the freaking heat outside. It doesn't do any good to put it in the pool water because then it destroys it. So this is our life. But there was a reason. There was an overall goal and understanding that we had in our activism and dealing with the news, doing shows, talking to thousands of people that know the philosophical understanding of what was inevitable, what we learned from, you know, various great minds like Ron Paul. He's been very clear about this. So this is, you know, here we go. Scott Horton, Anti-War Radio, this last weekend had released with Lex Friedman a 10.5-hour anti-war rant. U.S. This is how Israel, Ukraine, Russia, Middle East, who the they, them, those are of military industrial. Are you kidding me? 10.5 hours. Took 2 days for me and 3 days for Donna, or listen to it separately, to go through that whole thing. I contacted Scott and I'm like, you the man. This is great for you. Thanks for doing this. You know, pace. Well, he was just on the show, I don't know, last month or so. But this was, you know, you want to know, oh, I got the receipts. It's like 7,000 footnotes I think he had on the page of every page. Everything he did was footnoted to a file, footnoted to a speech, to a paper, because he knew he was going to get challenged. You're not allowed to dissent. And he's going, oh, yeah? Well, this is in your words, asshole. So he goes on Lex Friedman and debated some pro-Israel guy of whatever, and he kept interrupting, getting mad because the guy was lying his ass off, and Scott knew it. No, that's a lie. Oh, another lie. Lie. Later, so Lex finally, screw this. You can come back. Give him cred for that. Comes back. Then he had to stay overnight. Then it turned into a 10.5-hour podcast of you want to know what's up? Middle East, war, United States, the future, what's incentivized and what's discouraged through legislation and money. You want to know? You want to know? Do you want to know? When it comes to the military-industrial complex and war, Scott Horton, we've been good friends since, God, like 05, 04. You know, we crossed paths at Camp Casey during the Baby Bush administration of, Cindy Sheehan out there in the Gold Star families and blah, 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 blah. He and I sat there as libertarians and watched what happened. And that's a whole nother long story, along with Alex Jones and so on. I was, producer at Air America, communist radio dot whatever, they're token libertarians, me and Charles Goyette out there. I go, I'll cover it. So the station paid me, and I go, I got new tires from my Montero. I said, doing that, I'm needing to get new tires. Pay for new tires for it, and I'll drive out there, and I'll be there tomorrow, camp the thing, we can cover it and daily report on. And they go, okay. And I go, all right, cool. So I got new tires, paid for gas. I go out and I live in a ditch for a week and a half. So I'm like, hello. And what did we see? It was they, them, those. Move On was controlling both sides. It was an Israel war kind of whatever do and say, and we just marched in, we just march out. You can't say it's got to be phased withdrawal. We'll pull support, and you'll be a pariah in the movement, and we won't love on Cindy Sheehan anymore. I sat there and watched it happen, and then talked to her. I got it, stored somewhere, of the interview I did with her then. And she told me what they did, what they said, what the conditions were. The next day, her and her sister got in a car, went to the airport, and left. And from then on, she was persona non grata. And it was all about her asking Baby Bush administration when she went to the White House, and they, my condolences, shake the hand of the Gold Star families, you lost sons, and kind of, he died for a noble cause. Well, then she thinks and she goes, what noble cause? What was that cause? And she kept asking the question, and they kept ignoring her. So it became a big, giant thing. Then later she ran against Pelosi for Congress out of San Francisco. We had her on. We had parties at our home. She'd come, long story. But we followed this from the beginning. You're not allowed to dissent against Israel, against the New World Order, against the military-industrial, they, them, those, secret handshake, club, pharma, order of whatever the hell. They own you. They rule you. Get over it. I got so many examples of this and how they do it. They will keep doing it until they cannot keep doing it. How do you do that? Anarchy's only 62 miles away. Straight up, 100 kilometers, they're out of jurisdiction to bite me. Well, if you can't do that, occupy the land. Get more remote. Get more self-sufficient. Start watching homesteading, whatever, and different techniques of we're emphasizing a lot of that you see on video playing all over the internet, or somebody just opted out and I'm not here anymore. Time and pressure. And you get Filipino guys with a stick and dirt building 2-story entire bamboo freaking Taj Mahals of I Got a Pool in 2 hours on YouTube. It's inspiring. Yeah, but where's the central air go? It's common. And you may, I believe, that you're eventually going to have, refurbed, military robot to help you that's, hacked into, Jarvis, not Alexa, kind of whatever, of course. But how many billions will die before then? Just make sure you're the one that made it. You're living. Peace.